it's Quadix here. This one's just basically what if Jiraiya was based. Let's get into it. From afar, Jiraiya had seen the barrier holding his sensei and his old teammate drop. His heart dropped with it as he noticed the snake sage and the sound 4 retreating. Quickly abandoning his fight, Jiraiya sprinted across the rooftops as fast as he could. When he arrived, he saw Hiruzen motionless, surrounded by Konoha shinobi, with Kakashi, Yamato, and Asuma closest to him. The Sannin hopped down to his sensei's side. Nobody said a word, but their eyes told Jiraiya everything he needed to know. He knelt to take a closer look at Hiruzen. It was strange how Hiruzen could look so old and so young at the same time. His smile and laughter had always given him the air of a younger, more energetic man. However, you could see the man of 70 looked like he had been working for 100 years more than that. The job of Hokage was stressful enough on any man, let alone one who had already been retired and forced back into another 12 years of work. Jiraiya's thoughts flickered back to Orochimaru, and he felt anger and rage invade his sorrow. "Damn it, old man," he whispered in anger. "You should have let me deal with him when we had the chance. Your softness killed you," he continued solemnly. "Still," he said, reflecting on his sensei's tendency to be less cutthroat than his counterpart. "What are we gonna do without it now?" He stayed there for a moment, absorbing Hiruzen's features slowly coming to rest and looking more peaceful. When Jiraiya stood up, he found for Anbu next to Kakashi, who was looking at him expectantly, and he nodded his head. "Take him," Kakashi told the Anbu in his hoarse voice. Hiruzen was picked up by the Anbu and whisked away. "What happens now, Jiraiya?" Kakashi asked in a rare moment of confusion. "You, me, and the other Jonin are the best Konoha has left to offer. Our responsibilities are going to be changing a lot soon," he replied. "Speaking of responsibilities," began Kakashi, "we have some students to check up on," and the two began a sprint into the forest. "I see you still haven't given up on that foolish thing." Jiraiya was perched up upon a balcony, telescope in hand, when he recognized the voice. Hamoro Mitokado, and he probably had Koharu Utatane with him. "What business does a committee advisor have with me?" Jiraiya asked him. "What business are we here for?" Hamaro asked, if it was obvious. "We have something to tell you. You'll probably understand why," he continued. Jiraiya stood up and faced the two, not giving them his attention. "So you say," began Jiraiya, "even though your faces don't look like it. Talks with the Sen are going well," he finished. Although he was worried, he sensed this conversation was about to go in a direction he wasn't going to appreciate. Right now, the relationship with the Sen isn't that important. The power of the leaf is declining. People are getting worried. Foreign nations won't hesitate to mount up a force against us." Homaru finished. Before Jiraiya could form a reply, Koharu continued. "We know there's something coming our way, and not just Orochimaru. We need a strong leader to rely on, Jiraiya. We need a 6th Hokage." Jiraiya was immediately put off. "Well, unlucky for you, I'm not the man for the job. I've told you over and..." "Then who is Jiraiya?" She cut in harshly. "What are you gonna tell us now? That Tsunade is the one for the job, and now you're gonna go on a wild goose chase to find your old teammate while the village remains exposed to another attack?" Jiraiya frowned. He had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but deep down he knew it was a matter of time. They were right. After all, he was the best ninja for the job, as much as he hated to admit it. Even if he could drag Tsunade all the way back to the village in one piece, she would probably spend all day drinking on the job. He knew Danzo had been gunning for the job, and he shivered at the thought of what Konoha might look under the Warhawk's rule. The only one left was Kakashi, but he wasn't ready for it. Maybe in a few years from now. The village, however, needed someone to lead now, not someone who would be good in 5 years. Finally, Jiraiya looked up at the committee members, a look of defeat painted on his face. "Well, if there really isn't anyone else..." Master of Ninshu Part 1 by cloudpetals. After the death of his sensei, Jiraiya chooses not to pursue Tsunade and accepts the position of Hokage. Not privy to the secrets of his sensei's administrations, Jiraiya must decide if he will be complacent in the dark issues plaguing Konoha. Will he risk everything to save Konoha, and will it be at the cost of a new generation of shinobi? Normal Naruto characters, but just better. This is a story that is ongoing and new, so please go show some love to the author, link in the description. 500 likes for the next part, hopefully by tomorrow. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss it when it does come out. Let's get back into the story. Naruto stood at the Hokage's door with his fist raised to knock on it. "Go on, he's been waiting for you," said the Anbu, standing guard who had noticed Naruto's hesitation. Naruto obeyed, pushing the door to let himself in. "Hey, Jiraiya?" "Naruto, you don't seem surprised to see me sitting here," Jiraiya said lightheartedly. "Shikamaru's dad told Ino and Shikamaru, and they told me," he replied. An uneasy silence filled the air. "Look, Naruto, I know what you're thinking," Jiraiya began. "You won't be able to be my sensei anymore?" Naruto cut in. "I'm sorry, Naruto, truly. There's still so much I wanted to teach you. I know I always said I would never take this job, but Orochimaru and the Sand have left us vulnerable. There's no one who can really do this job the way it should be done." Naruto smiled in understanding. "It's alright, pervy sage. I get it." "Don't get it twisted, kid," Jiraiya began in his old playful tone. "I'll still teach you as much as I can, but Kakashi will have to do the heavy lifting where I can't." Naruto's old cheerfulness seemed to return. "Alright, but you better not slack off on this. No sneaking out to the lake to do your research for your novels, you hear?" Jiraiya let out a hearty laugh. "I'll do my best." Naruto frowned again. "How's Kakashi doing?" "His condition is stable, but nothing's changed. There's hope though. Tsunade sent a message saying she was coming our way," he responded. "That old granny you told me about before the third's funeral. I thought you said she'd never come back here," Naruto replied, his face twisted in an expression of skepticism. "Yeah, I thought so too, but her teammates killed her sensei, and her other teammate took her sensei's place as Hokage. All of it happened in a week too. It's a lot to take in. She probably doesn't believe it and wants to see it for herself. Regardless, she's the greatest medic nin on all 5 nations. She feels she has to help whoever she can. She'll help Kakashi. Don't worry too much about it, kid." Naruto nodded, a faraway look in his eyes as he began recalling the altercation with Itachi again. "It's just they were so powerful before you and Chika's dad stepped in. I thought I was toast." Jiraiya knew it was best to uproot these seeds of self-doubt before they could blossom into something much more dangerous. Don't worry about it, Naruto. No one's gonna let you die. Plus, you're shaping up to be a pretty powerful ninja. You beat that Gaara kid, didn't you? Kakashi and I aren't gonna let you down. You're gonna be an incredible shinobi." Naruto's face lit up. Don't worry. I won't let you guys down." He paused as yet another unresolved issue was brought to the forefront of his mind. "What about our promotions?" "Oh, about that." Naruto walked down the Hokage Tower steps and was surprised to see Sakura and Sasuke waiting for him. Sasuke was the especially surprising one. After Itachi and Kisame had attacked Sasuke, he had been even more reserved and closed off than usual, and this was the first time seeing each other since then. "Well, what do you say?" Sasuke asked, breaking the silence. "About what?" came Naruto's reply. Sasuke and Sakura looked at each other blankly for a moment. "Oh, maybe Kakashi's condition? Our promotion? What we're supposed to do with no sensei? You know, nothing important," Sakura barked sarcastically. Naruto was taken aback. Sakura rarely spoke to him like that ever since they had become Team 7. "Jeez, Sakura." "Sorry," she said in an apology. "Well, Jiraiya told me he has a medic over for Kakashi. He even mentioned she might be able to help Lee." Sakura's face lit up in the mention of Lee. As for... Nice guys finished last. Should have known that. Bro, that shit was on repeat in Lee's headphones at the hospital. "As for promotions, it's gonna be a while." "Why?" was Sasuke's response. Well, with the attack and everything, there's a lot of rebuilding to be done, not to mention our loss of manpower. He also needs to settle in to his position. The old man was Hokage for more than a decade. There were a lot of projects and issues that were ongoing that Jiraiya needs to be sped with. Needs to be up to speed with. It'll probably be 6 weeks at least before he gets to us. Sasuke looked as if he was thinking hard about something before speaking abruptly. Come on, Naruto, let's train. Naruto was taken aback by the request but decided not to think about it. Alright, I'm coming too, cut in Sakura, before they all left towards the training ground. Come on, Naruto, let's spar, Sasuke said as they made their way into the center of the training grounds. What about me? I wanna spar too, interrupted Sakura. Shut up, No, I didn't say that. That won't work, Sakura. We'll dominate you. And I wanna spar Naruto. Okay, alright. Maybe they should have just said shut up, Sakura. Sasuke replied. She wasn't used to this eagerness from her to train. He wasn't used to her eagerness to train. Alright. Well, I can't just sit around here till you're finished with Hey, yo, we still talking about sparring? She said, her mind flashed back to the Forest of Death and the battle with Gaara. She was not going to be standing behind them helpless next time. Okay, and that is training. At this point, Naruto intervened. Come on, are you guys forgetting I'm the great Naruto Uzumaki? You can both have. No, this wording has to be on purpose. You can both have me. And with that, a shadow clone appeared. The clone went towards Sakura as they brainstormed ways to get her faster and stronger enough to spar with them, while the real Naruto and Sasuke went to the other side of the training grounds to battle. Sundown had come and Jiraiya couldn't be happier. The day was finally over. He had spent his entire day receiving file after file from his assistants, reading up on the inner workings of Konoha infrastructure since he had left. It had only been a week and he was already tired of the job. He still had many jonin to be debriefed by. He pushed those thoughts to the side and was about to rise from his seat when his door flung open. Standing before him was a tipsy Tsunade and a very nervous Anbu. I'm sorry, Lord Hokage, but she sort of forced her way through. The Anbu began word vomiting, but Jiraiya dismissed them. So, it's true, Tsunade said through slurred words. They really made you Hokage. It's a prank, right, Jiraiya? No, Tsunade, it's not a prank. Jiraiya frowned. Usually, Tsunade was a functioning but it was obvious she had drunk a lot, even by her own standards. I sit there and do work for the village. After the attack, I think at least one of the Sannin should be doing something for it. The time for running away is over. He said the last part with a little venom in his voice, but regretted it as soon as it came out. Screw you, Jiraiya, she spat back at him. Jiraiya sighed and attempted to de-escalate the conversation. The village needs you now, Tsunade. I thought that's why you decided to come here. I came back to pay my respects to Sensei, not to get tangled in the village affairs again, she snapped. Tsunade, please. I know you're not in the best head state right now, but we really need you right now. I'm not saying move back to Konoha. I'm just asking if you're willing to give us a hand. There's a lot of shinobis that were badly injured in the invasion, he pleaded with her. Tsunade's eyes seemed to waver and come back to reality for a moment, but it wasn't enough. She stared into Jiraiya's eyes for a while and ended the conversation with a grunt. Well, that could have gone worse, Jiraiya thought to himself as he watched her carelessly stumble out of his office. Sasuke screamed in his mind as he barely dodged a kunai from 2 Naruto clones. He had gotten cocky initially, thinking his superior speed would let him finish things quickly, but when Naruto's clones grew to 5 and kept putting the pressure on him, it became much harder. So far, neither of them had landed a blow on the other, and Sasuke felt far more challenged than he did when training on his own. Still, he was disappointed. Naruto was definitely faster, stronger, better, more... No, and more consistent than before, but this wasn't what allowed him to beat the Gaara kid, nor was it the reason that Itachi had come after Naruto. Suddenly, Sasuke felt himself being swept off his feet. He cursed himself for losing focus in the middle of a fight and activated his Sharingan. He grabbed the new Naruto clone that tripped him and used it for a cover as he rolled away from the other clones. The clones disappeared and Sasuke charged at the ones he had left behind. He knew that he had to get Naruto exhausted before he could really see what the boy was capable of. Right, like you can get Naruto exhausted. Alright, that's enough, said Naruto. What do you mean enough? You're always the last one to finish training, replied Sasuke, as they regrouped at the center of the grounds. Yeah, well, Sakura doesn't want to admit it, but she's exhausted. Plus, it's dark out and we'll probably have a mission tomorrow. There's still a lot of rebuilding to be done. Sakura was surprised at Naruto being the voice of reason for once, but didn't say anything in fear of him changing his mind. As much as she wanted to continue, her body was drained. The Naruto clone alone seemed to have more stamina than her. Fine then, replied Sasuke, but once we're done with the whatever mission we might get, we should get back here again. Naruto and Sakura were again surprised by his willingness to train with them, but Sasuke ignored their puzzled looks. He was going to find out what was so special about Naruto, something nobody was telling them, not even Naruto himself. Kakashi had woken up early in the morning to the sound of shifting at his bedside. He groggily remembered the events of his battle with Itachi. Oh, I thought there was going to be a baddie or something, but never mind. He groaned, bringing a hand up to rub his eyes open and spoke. How long have I been out? About a week before I arrived, came a feminine voice. And then another week afterwards. Kakashi's eyes widened. He recognized that voice, but only just barely. He had heard it several times when he was younger, and much more clumsy shinobi. Tsunade? I wasn't aware you'd return to the village. Oh, don't get used to it, kid, she replied. I don't plan on being here longer, just to work on that Lee kid and a few others still recovering from the invasion. Oh, I see. So, Itachi did this to you? She asked, side-eyeing him. Yeah, honestly, it was a little embarrassing how fast it all happened. He trailed off. To think he's only 20 years old. Tsunade shook her head. Anyways, I checked your vitals. They all seem to be fine. That Sharingan seems to be a little more excited than usual. But other than that, you should be clear for duty again in a few days. Kakashi rubbed his eyes and became aware of a white box next to his bed. What's this? He asked. Jiraiya left it for you, Tsunade replied. Kakashi briefly looked at the contents of the box in shock. These were Minato's things. Before he could ask Tsunade about it, he looked up and noticed he was alone. Why would Jiraiya give him a box of Minato's old things? He rummaged through it and found a couple of notebooks. Opening one, he saw it filled with Minato's handwriting. At first, he was taken aback, thinking it was Minato's notes on Flying Thunder God. But after a close inspection, he realized that it was far less advanced than that. He should have figured. Minato always kept his cards close to his chest, and he highly doubted that Minato would leave such a notebook in existence once he had mastered the teleportation technique. Still, this was confusing. Why had Jiraiya decided to give these things to him now of all time? Deciding that there was no better way to find answers than to ask him, Kakashi threw his covers to the side and decided he was going on a trip on his favorite over to the Hokage's office. It was a brilliant idea until his knee buckled and he was on the floor instantly. He dragged himself back onto the bed, cursing his body. Naruto's eyes opened abruptly. It wasn't from a bad dream or anything. He just gotten used to the commotion of the past week. Had it been a week or actually maybe 3, Naruto couldn't tell. Jiraiya had been giving them 2 to 3 missions a day, and when he was done with those, Sasuke would basically drag him to the training grounds and they would all train as a team until nightfall. They never really talked about why they were training so much together now. Naruto knew that Sakura was embarrassed about being left in the dust by him and Sasuke in the forest of death. She had said it as much. Sasuke, however, was a different story. He had always trained alone, unless Kakashi had forced him to do a group activity, but now, Sasuke wouldn't leave him alone. As Naruto rolled out of bed, he decided it wasn't such a bad thing. He had felt himself improving much faster sparring with Sasuke than he did fighting his own clones. The mission's load was fine as well. Konoha had mostly recovered from the invasion, and he definitely didn't mind how full his wallet was growing after getting paid. He had almost finished hiding kunai in various parts of his jumpsuit when he realized today was a day off. Jiraiya had actually forced them to take a day off as he saw how overworked they were. Sasuke had planned on ignoring the order until Jiraiya told him that the barrier seals surrounding their training grounds and that he would enjoy life much more if he didn't know what those seals did when activated. Alright then, Naruto spoke to himself excitedly. Breakfast at Ichiraku's it is. He grabbed his wallet and practically flew out of his apartment. Running through the village, Naruto felt at peace for the first time since the third's death. With all of the rebuilding efforts, the village had finally begun to feel like home again. The cool morning breeze airing into his shirt, the shops and towns finally opening back up. Naruto whizzed and zigzagged past villagers as he took everything in. As he made a hard right towards Ichiraku, he ran right into someone and hit his head. Ow, what's the big idea? Can't you watch where you're going? Came a familiar feminine voice. Naruto rubbed his head and looked up to see a girl in purple dusting herself off. If she was anything like Sakura, she'd make a scene over it. But as Naruto was preparing an apology for Ino, she started eyeing him suspiciously. I like where this is going. Is that you, Naruto? She asked. Naruto looked down at himself to check if he had accidentally left his apartment in a substitution jutsu again. He looked up at Ino questioningly. Who else would I be? Sorry, it's just I don't think I've ever seen you without a headband or goggles. And you're not wearing that orange jumpsuit either, she replied. Naruto looked at her offhanded. I wear other things, and why'd you make that face when you mentioned my jumpsuit? Ino huffed. Sorry, I'm not all sunshine and rainbows, Naruto. You did greet me with a body slam, don't forget. Oh, yeah, sorry about that, he said sheepishly, as Ino held out her hand and helped him up. Where are you off to in such a hurry anyway, Naruto? Today's our day off, and I know it's not training because Shikamaru and I heard that the Hokage told you and Sasuke to Ichiraku ramen. It's breakfast time, he said as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. You're having ramen for breakfast? Ino replied, giggling. You don't? He replied with an incredulous look on his face. Well, you should, he continued, after seeing her still confused face. Ino thought about it for a moment and decided it couldn't hurt. She smirked as she responded, Okay, Naruto. I'll go, but only if you pay for my bowl. It's the least you could do after running into me like that. Naruto almost said no, but Ichiraku always gave him a good discount for bringing new customers to the shop. And if there was anyone who needed a discount on an order, it was Naruto. Sure, it's this way, he responded cheerily. Ino was momentarily taken back. She hadn't expected that to work on Naruto, but as she had learned the past month or two, the boy was full of surprises. So she let Naruto take the lead as they walked deeper into the village's shopping district. Isn't that your family's shop? Naruto said, pointing off to the left as they walked side by side. Yeah, unless you know some other people in the village with Yamanaka flower shop sign by its window, she said, teasing him. Naruto huffled and half amused, half annoyed by her antics. Before he could respond, she kept going. Why so curious, Naruto? I didn't see you as the type to tend to flowers in your free time. Continuing to nag him as they walked past the store and turned onto another street. Oh, it's nothing like that, trailing off before he continued. I did have some flowers on my windowsill, but they kept dying every time I went on a long mission outside the village. Ino's face lit up at this. My mom's actually has a jutsu for that. I don't know how it works, but it uses seals to release the water, and Naruto watched her go on and on about her mother's clever use of ninjutsu to grow the flowers in their shop. Sounds like I'll have to make my way over one day then, Naruto said, as Ino started to run out of things to reasonably say. Naruto paused and looked to the side. Oh, we're here. Ino turned and faced the stand. It was a cute little stand. There were no more than 6 seats, and as they entered the shade of the stand, Ino noticed 2 people manned it. An older man and a younger woman, probably only a few years older than her and Naruto. Hey Ayame. Naruto tripped at the brown-haired girl as she turned and smiled at him. Morning, Naruto, she replied, looking over at Ino. Is this a friend of yours? This is Ino. She's from Team 10 and she can enter other people's minds, he told her animatedly. Ino blushed as he began ordering. Well, that's not exactly how it works, she said as she began ordering a bowl for herself as well. They engaged in idle conversation until Toichi joined in with their orders in hand. Say, Naruto, I haven't seen you since the day before your exams. Naruto frowned and thought about it. Oh, you're right. You guys didn't get hurt during the attack, did you? Oh, nothing of the sort, he assured them. We were very lucky. How about you, Naruto? Did you get to fight at all before it? Ino perked up, remembering the events of the early round fights. Not just that, he beat Neji Hyuga. How did you even do that, Naruto? Oh yeah, that guy was tough. I'm still mad I didn't get to fight Sasuke though. We had to chase after him chasing after the Sand Kid. He told them in between bites. Wait, you and Sasuke beat that Gaara guy too? Ino asked in surprise as she looked up from her own bowl. Sasuke actually ran through most of his chakra by the time we got there. I said I had to fight Gaara myself. Ino was once again surprised. You fought the Gaara kid alone? She didn't think she'd be able to believe Naruto if she hadn't seen him defeat Neji in the first round. Suddenly, they were interrupted by a new voice. Actually, he didn't just fight him without us, he beat Gaara. Naruto and Ino both turned around to see the voice was Sasuke's. That's not true. I had a lot of help from my summon, Naruto said, correcting him. Ino felt herself getting dizzy at all this new information about Team 7. Naruto beat Gaara and he had a summoning now? What else did she not know about him? Just as she was about to get some answers out of them, she zoned back into Naruto and Sasuke's conversation. What do you mean we gotta go? I'm trying to have my breakfast in peace. Plus, it's our day off, and you know what will happen if we try to go back to the training grounds. Naruto was obviously annoyed at having his eating interrupted. Look, I'm not here I'm not here to interrupt your little date. Ino and Naruto nearly retaliated that it wasn't a date, but Sasuke didn't stop talking. Kakashi woke up and he's ready to see us again. This was obviously news to Naruto and his demeanor softened. Well, why didn't you just lead with that, you stubborn bastard? Ino sighed as she realized she wasn't going to get the answer she wanted today. Well, I guess we can talk another time, Naruto, she said, smiling at him. Naruto smiled back at her as he got out of his chair and put his money on the counter. Good luck on promotions tomorrow, Ino. As she watched as the most interesting boy she had yet to meet left her alone at the stand with Ayame and Toichi. This is getting good. Chapter 2, Promotions. For some reason, Sasuke had led Naruto back to the training grounds instead of the hospital. They met with Sakura just outside the said training ground limits, and Naruto's face twisted in suspicion. Is this some kind of lame trick, Sasuke? He said, turning to Sasuke in annoyance. But Sakura quickly came to his defense. No, Kakashi told me to tell you guys to meet here, and no, I didn't know why he said that. But we can't go in there. Aren't those seals supposed to do something terrible? Naruto shot back, still confused. I hate to say it, but Naruto's right, Sasuke responded in agreement. Right about what? Said a lazy voice from behind them. Oh, I thought that was Sakura, that's why I did the high-pitched thing. The trio turned around in shock to see Kakashi standing behind them. His eyes crinkled in amusement. He appeared completely healthy even though he had been bedridden just a few days ago. Well, go on, don't leave me waiting here forever, he continued. This time it was Sakura who spoke. It was Jiraiya. He sort of forced us to have a day off today. He said if we didn't, those seals on the ground would make us regret it. I see. Jiraiya did mention something like that. Nice to know that my students have been working hard even when I couldn't be here for them. The three genin cringed at his tone and couldn't tell if he was being sarcastic or not. They decided to say nothing and let their sensei keep going, but he instead knelt down and put his hand on one of the seals. Naruto and Sakura winced, expecting him to activate it, but nothing happened for a few moments until Kakashi stood up and the seal he had touched was crinkled and deactivated. I'm sure he wouldn't mind if we came in and have a little chat for a while, Kakashi said as he beckoned them to follow his lead. When they had made their way to the center, Kakashi seemed to be satisfied and began speaking. Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke, I think I owe you three an apology. For the third time in 5 minutes, their faces twisted in confusion. What was Kakashi apologizing for? It's all my fault, you see. I had thought that because we were in peacetime, I could afford to teach you three at a leisurely pace, let you grow and discover at your own speed, and prepare you diligently until you are ready for the life of a shinobi. But as you all saw, war doesn't care if you're ready to be a shinobi, or still just pretending to be one. Sakura's eyes widened. Are you saying? But Kakashi knew what she was thinking. No, Sakura. The talks with Tsunade are actually going well, but that doesn't mean we couldn't have gotten into war. In fact, that doesn't mean we're out of the frying pan yet. Orochimaru is still out there, and other enemy nations might decide that now is the perfect time to strike, while we're weakened and still rebuilding. He paused to let them soak everything in and continued. Back in the land of waves, I told you three that I would be doing everything in my power to protect you, that I would keep fighting till my dying breath. But then, I found myself in front of Orochimaru, with an unconscious Sasuke behind me. Sasuke grimaced, realizing what exactly Kakashi was talking about, to think that Orochimaru had gotten that close to him. I was afraid, and if Orochimaru had felt like it, I wouldn't have been able to do anything to stop him. There was a long silence as they took in what Kakashi had told them. It was rare that their sensei spoke this seriously and sincerely all at once. After gathering up the courage, Sakura spoke first. But Kakashi, you could have done anything. Orochimaru beat the third and he would have beat you too. Nonsense, Sakura. My job as your sensei is to protect and teach you until you three are strong and capable enough to face these threats on your own. I haven't done good on either of those things, so there's going to be a lot of changes. What sort of changes? Naruto cut in, not sure whether to be excited or not. Kakashi's demeanor softened and he began smiling again. Well, now is the fun part. We all get to become very powerful shinobi together. Now it was Sasuke's turn to smile. Finally, it was time Kakashi got serious about their training. This was what he had been waiting for. Training with Kakashi. For that month to fight Gaara was exhilarating. To feel his power grow so much and so rapidly, it was intoxicating. Oh Naruto, I understand you've grown a lot better with chakra control ever since the Forest of Death. Naruto nodded enthusiastically. I can even water walk now. Kakashi smiled as he put a hand on his pocket and materialized several square pieces of paper. Excellent, Naruto. I want you to try and focus your chakra into this piece of paper, and tell me what happens. It's okay if it doesn't work on your first try. That's why there's more than one of them. Naruto nodded as Kakashi handed him the papers, and Kakashi turned to face Sakura. You have a lot of catching up to do. We're gonna focus on your taijutsu, and when I think you're ready, I'm gonna have you and Sasuke get started on genjutsu. What about me? Sasuke questioned. Until Sakura is ready, you and I are gonna be working on our endurance. What's the point of the Chidori if we get exhausted after a few? This answer seemed to satisfy Sasuke, and he looked in the direction of Naruto, who was now crowing about something, trying to get Kakashi's attention. Kakashi, look, my paper, it split, he said, flailing his arms around. What does that mean? It means your elemental affinity is wind, Naruto, Kakashi responded. Wind? Yes, it's quite a rare element to have an affinity for in Konoha, he remarked, and this seemed to be enough to get Naruto excited about. Kakashi looked at his excited students. I know you're all excited, but these won't be the only new things happening. There's going to be the same serious changes in the way we do missions. Being strong isn't enough to be a good shinobi. You three have some serious team dynamic problems. This is a problem that stems from all three of you, and not just Naruto being stubborn, as you'd like to believe Sasuke and Sakura. Nor is it just Sasuke being arrogant, as you might be thinking, Naruto. Sasuke cringed at the criticism but stayed quiet along with Naruto. Sakura was the one asking questions again. "What's gonna happen, sensei?" Kakashi smiled mischievously, knowing that they weren't going to like his answers. "That's for me to know, and you to find out tomorrow after promotions." Before any of them could object, Kakashi cut in. "Also, Jiraiya's seals are gonna reactivate in 30 seconds. I suggest you get out of the training grounds if you don't want to be in a great deal of pain for the rest of the day." And with that, Kakashi poofed out of existence, revealing he was just a shadow clone. However, it meant very little to his students as they were tripping over their feet, desperately trying to escape the training grounds. Can someone comment if you can hear the fan in the background? I'm not sure if you can or not. "You know, Kakashi, I would have expected this from you and your team, not Asuma's," Jiraiya said, trying to lighten the mood in the room. It had been an agonizing half an hour waiting for Team 10, who apparently forgot what day it was today. Guy's team was the worst for where Lee had admitted out of the hospital just in time for today. Despite being confined to a wheelchair for the time being and still just generally being in a bad physical state, he still managed to get on Neji's nerves. 10-10 had to calm them both down while telling Lee this wasn't the appropriate time to ask for a rematch. It's a based move. Asking for a rematch in a wheelchair. There was a brief knock on the door, but before anyone could open it, the door swung open and Team 10 was standing there awkwardly. An uncharacteristically angry Shikamaru had a piece of Choji's shirt in his hands. Jiraiya smirked. "We're beginning to think you weren't gonna join us, Asuma." "Did you get lost in the path of life?" Kakashi asked jokingly. Asuma glanced down at his students, wondering if there was a way to explain what had happened that morning. He decided there wasn't, but before he could dismiss it, Ino decided to cut in. "Shikamaru got lost in the path of dreamland and had the audacity to get angry at us for waking him up." Shikamaru had the decency to look embarrassed by this, and Jiraiya wasn't sure what to say. He was sure if Hiruzen had been sitting at the desk rather than him, he would have something very wise to say in response and would eloquently transition to the next topic. But Jiraiya wasn't his sensei. Jiraiya made his living writing interesting books, so he decided to just ignore the outburst. Naruto looked at Choji's expression and his mind ran wild, wondering what sort of things a cranky Shikamaru was capable of, but just as soon as the thoughts had occurred to him, Jiraiya seemed to recover from the situation and began speaking. "Alright then, now that that's out of the way, I'm sure y'all are wondering—" I can't speak today, I don't know why. Now that that's out of the way, I'm sure you guys are all wondering why I called you here. While I didn't get to see the battles before the final round, I did have all the Jonin who were present describe them to me exactly what happened and their own beliefs on your capabilities. It seemed to me that all nearly 12 of you are comfortably chunin level shinobi. Everyone's face lit up at this, but their hopes of guaranteed promotions were quickly stomped on. However, Jiraiya continued, only 3 of you are going to be promoted today. Now before you all get angry at me, don't worry, I'm not going to make the rest of you enter another chunin exams. You guys are an incredibly powerful group, and I, along with your Jonin senseis, have decided you still need some time to mature and grow before we let you be chunin, who have the power to lead missions and take on high-ranking ones with your senseis. Jiraiya stopped and soaked in their reactions. Tenten spoke this time. So what do we do if we're not going to enter another chunin exams? Your sensei described to me ways each of you need to grow. They'll lead the way for you, and if in 6 months they feel like you're ready, you'll be promoted. The genin in the room had mixed expressions on their faces, but didn't say another word. Now that's out of the way, 3 of you are going to be promoted right now. And Anbu walked over and handed him 3 flak jackets. First up, Shikamaru Nara. Shikamaru nearly let out a sigh but was able to stop himself. He'd figured something like this would happen, and now he would have more and more responsibilities strapped onto him that he didn't ask for. Still, he wasn't stupid enough to look disappointed. At a promotion in front of the Hokage, he accepted the flak jacket from Jiraiya and noted it was heavier than he thought it would be. Next, Shino Aburame. Everyone looked surprised at this. Even Shino looked surprised for a moment, but surprise turned to satisfaction and Shino stepped forward to take the flak jacket. Finally, the room tensed up. Nobody was really sure who was going to be called last before the exams. Shikamaru would have guessed Sasuke or Neji would be promoted, but Sasuke's match had been interrupted, Neji had lost, and Shino had apparently impressed the elders. Shikamaru figured Shino had done something during the invasion after all. He himself had done something similar. With the train of thought, he realized that there was really only one candidate at this point. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto was elated and dashed over to his flak jacket, boasting to Kiba on his way back and taunting him about who was going to become Hokage. Those are 4 flak jackets. Those are your flak jackets. You don't have to wear them, but if you do, wear them with pride. I need you 3 to meet me tomorrow morning. Other than that, you're all dismissed, Jiraiya said. The Genin and now Chunin made their way out of Jiraiya's office. Ino said they should celebrate and Choji eagerly suggested a restaurant he hadn't been to in a while. Everyone obliged and were soon on their way. Everyone except Sasuke. Sasuke stood in the same spot before he had been the whole time. His fists clenched. Jiraiya and Kakashi glanced at each other, figuring something like this would happen. Before Sasuke could ask anything, Kakashi decided to start answering. Don't take this as an insult to your strength, Sasuke, he tried. Just don't understand what did those 3 do that I can't. I didn't see Shikamaru or Shino fight Gaara. Sasuke wanted to continue, but Kakashi wasn't having any of it. The reason they got promoted is because they weren't reckless like you, Sasuke. Shikamaru knows his limits. Shino took on Kankuro for you, and Naruto actually did beat Gaara. What you did was recklessly chase down Gaara and try to beat him for your own selfish satisfaction. Not only that, but you overused the Chidori and nearly got yourself killed from chakra exhaustion. That's why they were promoted, Sasuke, because you made a mess and they did a good job cleaning it up. Sasuke switched in anger, taking it all in. Although he tried his arrogance, couldn't conjure up an argument for himself. He had already acknowledged himself that Naruto was stronger. Trying to argue was pointless now. Sasuke cursed himself silently for attacking his teammates to explain his own weakness. He would never beat Itachi if he kept doing this. This was stupid. Concerning himself with something as stupid as a promotion, the green flak jacket wasn't going to help him kill his brother. Let it go, Sasuke, Kakashi said as he watched Sasuke start to reach his boiling point. What's done is done. Just don't do anything like that again and you'll have your promotion in a little while. Sasuke eased up. He had been doing a lot of that these days. At first it felt weak, but eventually he realized that brooding only made Kakashi and the others lecture and pretend to understand him more. Fine, he said, curtly as he began walking off. Jiraiya and Kakashi made brief eye contact once again. Where are you going, Sasuke? Kakashi asked in the least accusatory tone he could muster. Sasuke's mouth twisted into a very uncharacteristic smile. He obviously wasn't used to making this expression and even he could tell it was hollow and unconceiving. I'm gonna celebrate my teammate's promotion, he replied, before closing the door behind him. Kakashi stood wondering what to think of this moment. Well, at least he's pretending to care about team dynamics now. Isn't that healthy, Kakashi? Jiraiya said. Yeah, I suppose it's an improvement, Kakashi replied in defeat. In the dim light of a flickering candle he had relit several hours ago, Kakashi sat at his desk facing the single window in his apartment. In front of him was a sprawl of Minato's old notebooks on ceiling. When Kakashi had skimmed through them, he hadn't been very interested in soaking up all the information, but he had learned 2 very important things upon further examination. Firstly, these notebooks were far more valuable than just any ceiling scroll you could find. Put away in a vast directory of information held in the library at the Hokage's residence. The information in these notebooks were incredibly advanced and pushed the art of sealing forward tremendously. Uzumaki clan's sealing usually focused on either locking very bad things away or pushing the boundaries of storage sealing. However, many of the sealing jutsus and applications Minato had concocted were very innovative and previously thought of as impossible or far too dangerous. Minato seemed to have an affinity for applying sealing jutsu to ordinary weapons and making them extremely dangerous. Some seals he had experimented with tried to actively manipulate sound. Another particularly interesting one allowed you to teleport an object back to yourself whenever you wanted, as often as you wanted. As exciting as this was, Kakashi's second observation explained why they hadn't in fact pushed the art of sealing forward tremendously. Minato was incredibly disorganized and hadn't written his notes with the assumption that someone might need to learn or extract information from them at some point in the future. It was filled with fragmented sentences and half-finished sealing instructions. Kakashi had spent the better part of his waking hours recently trying to piece everything together and making sense of the notebooks. Kakashi rubbed his throbbing eye, tired from reading in dim light for hours. He was currently piecing together a notebook that went into elaborate detail about using chakra suppression and chakra blocking seals on the human body. Minato apparently had many theories on how this might be used, but ultimately didn't have the test subjects to confirm all his theories. Suddenly, Kakashi's Sharingan started to hurt. Amazing, he thought to himself. Now both of his eyes were throbbing, and he didn't intend to stop his work anytime soon. At times like this, Kakashi became fed up with his Sharingan, wondering if it would be better to just tear it out of his eye socket and be done with the chakra siphon that lived in his skull. But the thought always left him as soon as they came. He couldn't do that. He couldn't disrespect Obito like that. He had to be Obito's eyes and ears. But he never finished that thought. Somewhere in his brain, in between thoughts of his painful Sharingan and Minato's chakra sealing experiment backdropping his mind, it came to him. At first he felt absolutely brilliant. This would change everything. However, after his momentary elation, he felt disappointed in himself. Sure, it might have been brilliant if he had managed to do it 10 years ago, but now it seemed like it was just long overdue. Sure, he hadn't actually had a solid theory on how to accomplish it back then, but he was freaking Kakashi Hatake. He became a Jonin at 13, and his sensei was Minato Namikaze. He, of all people, was the perfect candidate to try something like this, even if that prideful Fugaku Uchiha had told him it was impossible. He paused in his thoughts, however. He shouldn't get ahead of himself. It was, after all, just a theory, and he had to run it by Tsunade to see if the logistics worked. But he couldn't contain his excitement, and he was already contemplating how soon he could get it in front of Tsunade. It was late, he thought, but if she was still in the village, it's doubtful she would be asleep. More than likely, she would still be at a pub at this hour, either getting drunk or already passed out. Yes, it was perfect. If he left now, he could probably still catch her and ask her about it. Kakashi clumsily pushed himself away from the desk and it snatched the appropriate notebooks he would need to explain it all to her. He nearly rammed into his door, opening it up, and hastily pulled his mask back over his nose and set out to find the only female member of the Sannin. Chapter 3. Root. Sasuke's ears were met with the sound of a kunai clattering on concrete as he stumbled to put his sandals on. He grimaced and examined the pouch that held his kunai, noticing for the first time a hole inside of it. He turned and nearly opened his door again, but instead chose to drop the pouch and leave it. He didn't have any new ones left, and he probably wouldn't need it today anyway. Sasuke looked up ahead at the path outside the Uchiha compound, noticing for the first time how bare the trees were. That's right, it had been 3 months and it was autumn now. 3 months since Kakashi put them on a brutal new training regimen, even by Sasuke's standards. 2 months since Ino had joined him and Kakashi on their speed training. It was strange at first, but Naruto explained that he wanted to learn better wind release from Asuma, so Asuma suggested that he and Ino swap spots, since Ino also wanted to up her offensive power and Asuma didn't want to divide his attention between 4 students at once. Sasuke had resented Ino at first, thinking she would get in his way and only hold him and Kakashi back, but Kakashi had explained that they would be using resistance seals to make it harder for them to move. This brought them down to just above Ino's speed, allowing Ino to be challenged without being left in the dust, and allowing him and Kakashi to train without rapidly destroying the training grounds, as high intensity sparring tended to do. Sasuke smiled as he hopped from rooftop to rooftop on his way to the training grounds. Realizing that he had come to actually enjoy these sessions with Ino and Kakashi, he was worried initially that Ino would get clingy and pry for his attention like she did at the academy, but training was a serious matter to her. Sasuke even found that she could be like Naruto at times, which, while a little annoying, held an air of comfortability, familiarity, allowing Ino to fit right into their training dynamic. Finally, near the grounds, Sasuke hopped down from the roof he was on and made his way towards the forest. He found Ino leaning on a tree looking towards the clearing and tried to stretch a few feet away from her, but the awkwardness seemed to take over her and she decided to speak to him. "He's late," she said. "Nothing new," he replied. "But he was doing so well lately," she whined. "He was on time for 3 whole weeks." Sasuke grunted. "Maybe he wants to keep us on our toes." They paused for a moment, a comfortable silence between them, but Ino spoke up again. "It's just not fair, you know? Asuma's never late. Naruto's probably getting a lot more training time than us." Sasuke's eyes shot up at hers and she giggled in response as Sasuke's blushed in embarrassment. "Sorry. I knew that one would catch your attention. I just had to," she said, continuing to giggle. "That's so," he responded. "You talk about him so often. I thought maybe you just needed your fill of Naruto information from me and Sakura today," he said with a sly smile. It was Ino's turn to blush now, as she stood and collected herself, turning around and looking at the opposite direction of Sasuke. "Well, he talks Asuma's ears off so much, he's probably missing out on as much training as us, so I guess you don't have to worry about it," she retorted. Sasuke smiled again. He enjoyed playing this game with her, and was willing to overlook her frequent attacks on his ego for it. "Well, Kakashi is probably gonna be really late today, so maybe you should go back over to your team and let Naruto talk his ear off to you." Before Ino could escalate their banter, a lazy voice cut in. Sorry about being late. I was putting the final touches on a new technique." "That's a new one, Kakashi," Ino replied. "This one's actually kinda sounds believable." "What the f-" Ino quickly turned on her heel at her interrupter. It was Sasuke, wearing a very un-Sasuke-like appearance of shock on his face. The look was directed at the direction of Kakashi's voice, and she looked over. Soon enough, she had a very similar expression painted on her face. "Oh, so you noticed," he replied cheekily. "Yes, I've been putting this together for a few months now." He smiled back at them, but today his emotions weren't being carried through a singular open eye. Today he wore his headband on his head like any other leaf ninja, looking at them with both of his eyes. 2 black orbs peered back at Sasuke. Not an inkling of the blood red of Kakashi's Sharingan could be seen in them, leaving Sasuke in a silent panic. What was this? Why would Kakashi give up his Sharingan? Did he not care about helping Sasuke develop his own? Did he not care about the promise he had mentioned whenever anyone tried to ask him about how he had acquired his left eye? "Relax, Sasuke," Kakashi said, worrying his student would implode. "It's still there," he said, reassuringly as he channeled chakra into his fingertips and lightly tapped his temple. Sasuke watched as a familiar deep red overtook Kakashi's eye, and the Tomoe slowly spun to life. "That's a neat trick, Sensei. You always complained about it siphoning your chakra all day. How much more chakra would you say you have now?" he responded. "You won't even believe me. Remember when I told you we were going to work on our chakra, and that I could probably up my Chidori numbers from 4 to 6, he said excitedly. "How many can you do now, Kakashi?" It was Ino asking this time. "Well, now I can do about 7 a day, he said lazily. Sasuke nearly choked on his own spit. 7 a day? Are you gonna work on chakra expansion at this point? He asked. "Nonsense. Of course I'm gonna work on chakra expansion. I told you guys, didn't I? I'm gonna be training myself just as hard as I'm training you." Kakashi paused and stretched his chin. "That being said, I'll probably be able to build up around 10 Chidoris per day." Sasuke was beaming now. Kakashi had once again shown he was capable of taking their training to a new level, and Sasuke felt Orochimaru's attempts and promise of power linger further back in his mind, away from his daily musings. "Is that what's been keeping Lady Tsunade in the village?" Ino asked suddenly. Kakashi looked at her in surprise. He forgets she was smarter than she appeared. "Yeah," he began. The basics of it are done by a seal of my own design, but Tsunade helped iron everything out and make sure it was safe." "You've been using an awful lot of seals lately," Sasuke remarked passively. "Speaking of seals, Ino and I have some good news for you," Kakashi said, changing the subject and watching her look up at him in confusion. He held up a few seals in between his fingers. "Oh, are they the resistance seals?" she asked. Kakashi nodded in response. "You've gotten quick fast. They're not as strong as the ones on Sasuke yet, but you've narrowed the gap tremendously." Ino smiled as pride swelled up in her for the first time since dropping out of the chunin exams. "Can we train now?" Sasuke asked impatiently. Jiraiya pushed his paperwork to the side as he let out a sigh, realizing that he wasn't going to get any more done today. He lazily got off the chair and made his way to the door. Jiraiya considered going out for a drink and trying to hash things out with Tsunade. She was still in the village, and things had been a bit better since the incident they had a few weeks ago. Before Jiraiya could make any definitive decisions, he swung the door open and looked down in shock. Initial shock for a fact that he hadn't sensed anyone behind the door, and then even more shock when he realized that the individual under him was bleeding at an alarming rate. It was then when Jiraiya's eyes adjusted more to dim light of the hallway, and recognized the woman below him was wearing Anbu attire. That at least explained why he hadn't sensed her presence earlier. It was rather impressive actually that she managed to make it here so stealthily while bleeding out. "Lord Hokage," came the Anbu's desperate voice, pulling Jiraiya straight out of his thoughts and back into action. Jiraiya kneeled instantly and held the woman upright. "You don't need to say anything. I'll get a medic right." "No," she let out, shooting her hand out and grabbing Jiraiya's arm much tighter than he would have expected for someone who had lost so much blood. "No medics. There's no way to tell if we can trust any of them. There's some after me anyway," she continued in ragged breath. "Hold on, slow down. What's this about?" Jiraiya said in confusion. "It's about Danzo Shimaru," she replied and watched as Jiraiya's face darken in anger and understanding. "Go on then, tell me everything." Throughout the year, Danzo's Roots has carried out some of the most reckless and morally black missions you can imagine, even by Anbu standards. Jiraiya nodded. This much he suspected already, and he watched as the woman continued speaking. He finds the village's most talented young but also damaged shinobi and coaxes them into Root. "I was only 15 when I was initiated, and I was in the darkest spot of my life. Danzo, the way he speaks, he will say the most appealing things but weave his words in a convincing way. The most appalling things." She paused, coughing and hacking as blood came out of her mouth. "It's okay, slow down for a moment," Jiraiya replied as he watched color leaving her face. He had started using what little healing jutsu he knew, but it was having little to no effect on her. "Lord Hokage, please understand. He has people everywhere. Even when I started to realize the extent of his manipulation, there was nothing I could do. Even Lord Third didn't push Danzo to stop. You can't trust any of the Anbu with Root affiliations. They might be good people, but they're loyal to Danzo, no matter what. Some of them are so unwavering, it's like they're under some sort of spell." Jiraiya's face darkened even more. If that was possible, the Anbu woman began to cough and choke even more. "Even with Orochi." Jiraiya never got the chance to hear the end of her thought. He watched her eyes droop further as her breathing went from raggedy to painfully slow, until it stopped completely. His ears perked up as he recognized the near silent but very quick footsteps of the Anbu. "There's some after me anyways," her voice echoed in his head, and he postured himself for their approach. Sure enough, 4 figures appeared at his open door. He watched as one near the back of the pack seemed to tense up ever so slightly. He had not been expecting them. He might not have picked it up. These were definitely Anbu from Root. Lord Hokage, are you alright? The one at the front questioned. She knocked out the door, but by the time I opened it, she collapsed in my arms. Her breathing was gone, and it looks like she's been bleeding out for a while, he lied. My apologies, Lord Hokage. She's been intoxicated and was hallucinating. She somehow managed to get out of her hospital room. That didn't explain why she was still in full Anbu attire, but Jiraiya decided not to prod on the lie too much. Not so, he said, with only the slightest bit of doubt in his voice. I want a full report by tomorrow morning, he finished. He wondered how well of a lie they could put together to cover it up. Before looking down at the woman in his arms, she couldn't have been older than 23. He felt his frustrations bubble up. 23 years old, and had already died at the hands of a shinobi life. Probably at the hands of her fellow shinobi, in fact, which added more insult to injury. He wondered how he had gotten into this mess. He knew his world had always been surrounded by an unimaginable amount of hatred, but having to watch this was appalling him to no end. Was this where they were at? Soldiers being murdered at the hands of their own comrades? Even as Hokage, what could he possibly do to reverse a system so utterly broken beyond repair? Kakashi ducked under a branch as he came out from trees, a figure clad in Anbu attire, her mask tied around her tight and her purple hair floating in the breeze. I thought I'd find you here, Yujeo, Kakashi began. I also like where this is going. This should have been canon. I don't know why they kept Kakashi lonely like that. Kakashi, he replied in what sounded like something between a statement and a question. Don't worry, it's nothing urgent, Kakashi said, as he watched her creep down to wear her mask. I came here to apologize. After all was said and done in talks with the sand. You couldn't get that bastard Baki for anything, she finished for him. It seems as though he's too important of a figure in the sand. I've told my genin before that revenge won't solve their problems, but I remember what it was like to be an Anbu. Most don't have anyone they can be truly comfortable with, and to have that person taken away from you, if it was possible, I wouldn't have hesitated helping you hunt him down. She had turned to face him now and smiled. You're the only other person I'd want by my side to do it. A comfortable silence passed over them as they watched the full moon. You know, at this point, you've been an Anbu as long as I have. You know you can leave, right? Kakashi said in a half-serious, half-cheeky tone. Yujiro looked up at him, as if she had just contemplated it for the first time. But, before she can say anything in response, her head darted in the opposite direction. Another Anbu appears from the side of the mountain, landing in a kneeling position. Kakashi Hatake, the Hokage requests your presence at once, he says. Kakashi is surprised but doesn't show it. It was nearly 4 in the morning. Whatever this was, it must have been serious. He gave Yujiro one last look and a wave, smiling with his eyes. Another time, he managed to say, before following the Anbu to the Hokage tower. Yujiro stayed in her spot watching him leave. He could express so much with just one eye, well, two, was almost overwhelming after all this time. She could only imagine if he ditched a mask too. When Kakashi arrived, he was very much on guard. Well, more so than the Anbu veteran already was, on a constant basis. The Anbu that escorted him had brought Kakashi through the window of the office. Actually, that wasn't true. He had escorted him about 15 feet from the window and then told him to go in through the window. Kakashi had looked at him incredulously and unknowingly scared the Anbu, who was very new and had heard of Kakashi's, let's say, reputation. When Kakashi had finally entered through the window, Jiraiya had stood up and closed the blinds on the window and walked to his door. Kakashi then watched as Jiraiya closed a comically large amount of locks and seals to lock the door completely. Are you sure you didn't eat something off, Jiraiya? Kakashi asked, dropping the formalities. Jiraiya looked up with a piercing, ironclad look that let Kakashi know this was serious. Hiruzen seems to have left us a problem, all wrapped up with a big ugly bow. To be completely honest with you, I'm taking it as more of an immediate threat than the Akatsuki right now. Kakashi's eyes narrowed as he thought of the suspect and tried to piece what was in front of him together. Jiraiya considered this a big threat, yet was confiding in him alone. His sensory abilities had told him that the usual Anbu guard was significantly further away from them than usual. In fact, there was nobody in the entire building. The closest Anbu was the one that escorted him here and left him just outside the window. Jiraiya watched as the cogs spun in Kakashi's mind. Their eyes met and Kakashi spoke. It's Danzo, isn't it? Bingo. A scoundrel was ordered to disband Root nearly a decade ago, Jiraiya said. Let me guess, he released the most exposed members, like Yamato, but kept going in secret. I'm afraid that might actually only be the tip of the iceberg. Kakashi grimaced, ready for another headache. Everything I'm gonna tell you now is to be considered an S-rank secret. This is troublesome, but I think I know a way we can crush this bastard once and for all. Are you sure? Still holds a lot of power as an elder, and has connections with the daimyo, Kakashi replied. Yes, but you might not like it, because those rookie chunin are gonna be our best bet. Chapter 4 Rasengan. That's a pretty good title for a chapter, I must say. God dang it, Pervy Sage, is this a joke? What's this balloon got to do with making our Rasengan anyway? Naruto was frustrated. Jiraiya had shown him an incredible powerful move, promised to teach it to him, but then just handed him this water balloon? I told you, Naruto. The first step to making our Rasengan is to pop this water balloon with only your own chakra, came the lazy voice of the Hokage. But Pervy Sage, I already popped the balloon, remember? I used my other hand to add the chakra, but it worked, didn't it? And I said, you did a good job, didn't I? Using your free hand to apply more chakra was creative, and I commend you for it, but it's not a shortcut I can accept. Let me put it this way, Naruto. When you add chakra with your other hand, what way were you doing it that finally popped the balloon? I just added chakra in different spots. Why is that important? Naruto replied. Because adding in different spots, you let the water twist and turn in the balloon until it finally stretched the plastic enough to pop it. Why do you think that's important to make a Rasengan? Naruto stopped and pondered for a moment, thinking back to the moment Jiraiya had shown him the jutsu. Because the Rasengan was all spinny. Is that what you want me to do? Jiraiya smirked at Naruto's choice of words. Precisely, Naruto. You're using other hand as a crutch because of your poor chakra control. Naruto deadpanned and looked back at his master in disappointment. Aw, come on. It's not my fault I got all this chakra. It's really hard to control, you know? Precisely. All that chakra is exactly why this technique is suited to you. I know it's only been 2 hours, but I need to go now, so I'll leave you with this. Instead of just trying it over and over without your second hand, practice using your second hand less and less each time you pop it. Naruto smiled at Jiraiya. That's pretty smart. Maybe there's more in your brain than Pervy thoughts. I told you to lay off saying things like that, he replied defeatedly. Alright, Pervy Sage. Make sure to actually get your work done instead of doodling your novels during meetings again. You're not gonna let that go, are you? Anyway, I'm gonna go now, said the Hokage, as he walked away from the training grounds and back towards his office. Wait, Naruto said before Jiraiya was out of earshot. What is it? Jiraiya responded. I only have one water balloon. Oh, he replied. Rummaging in his shirt pockets, he pulled out a small scroll and tossed it to Naruto. Just use this. Naruto looked at the scroll before holding it out and letting some chakra run through it. After a burst of smoke, a crate full of water balloons appeared on the grass, and Naruto just stared at it deep in thought before he finally spoke to the void. Why does a legendary shinobi carry around a scroll filled with water balloons? Naruto awoke with a startle as a cup worth of water assaulted his face. He felt himself sit up as his mind went through the confusion of waking up. What just happened? He had finally popped the balloon. Did that Tsunade woman stop watching him? Was he drowning? Good morning, Naruto. came the familiar voice of Kakashi. Naruto rubbed his eyes as his memories came back to him. He had spent all night and managed to pop a few water balloons with less of his second hand, but he still wasn't even close to popping them with one. "Oh, you have an apartment?" said a voice from behind him. "I was just training at night and fell asleep. Naruto began to say as he turned back around, but saw the broken balloon and a kunai in his teammate's hand. "Hey, Sasuke, don't do that. I need those water balloons. You can't just waste them." "I knew you were lonely, but I didn't know it was this bad," Sasuke replied. "It's not like that, you emo loser." Naruto was now comically agitated as his friend and began to mouth off intensely while Sasuke held a small smirk. Ino stood there watching them. While Sasuke had become more open recently, well, more open mostly to Team 7, other than Ino, it was Naruto who seemed the most comfortable with. He was the most comfortable with. Going out of his way to tease Naruto first, she couldn't quite understand the bond they shared and how it developed, and it only made her more curious about who Naruto really was. "Hey Naruto," Ino begun, red in the face from yelling. Naruto instantly turned his head towards Ino. "What were you training with these water balloons for?" she asked curiously. Naruto looked at her, noticing for the first time she had what looked like small seals on her arms and legs. Difficult to tell from his vantage point, and not wanting to get caught staring, he discarded the observation and just answered her question. Ino saw Naruto's face take on a happier expression. "Well, it started when Pervy Sage told me to come here. That was another thing. When and how did Naruto not only get one of the Sannin to train him, but also was so casual that he would only refer to him as pervert and managed to get away with it? With every new thing she learned about him, she only got more confused. And then he showed me the super awesome jutsu called the Rasengan, so I need the water balloons to practice it." Kakashi, who happened to be just behind Naruto, raised his eyebrow almost imperceptibly. It was just enough that she could catch the expression. Had he still been covering his left eye, she would have totally missed it. But that movement made the gears in her mind start spinning yet again. See, it wasn't just Naruto that was weird, and Sasuke was weird around Naruto. Kakashi was weird with him too. Sometimes they would say the vaguest things to each other, and when Naruto's back was turned, sometimes Kakashi would look at him with the strangest expression. She couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was, but it seemed like it was guilt. Kakashi would also be ever so slightly more positive towards Naruto, when he would usually be apathetic towards others, even if those others were Sasuke and Sakura. Ino's frustration had been building up like this for months now, picking upon little things each time Naruto had decided to train with Team 7. Again, instead of with Asuma. Her friends would tell her she was overthinking, but she was a Yamanaka, as she couldn't help herself from trying to get into people's head. Choji would just get lost asking if she was really sure she was seeing some such micro interactions. Shikamaru really upset her though. He was supposed to be the smart one. Ino knew he got what she was thinking about, but all his lazy butt could do was tell her it didn't matter and it was a drag to think about. Silly Shikamaru. She knew that whatever he said, he was thinking about her words regardless, so why not just discuss it with her? She was finally brought out of her thoughts by the sound of a balloon popping. Ino jumped a little at the sound. Her eyes darted around, thankful to see that nobody had caught her little moment of fear. What sort of shinobi is so disconnected from her surroundings? "Interesting way of popping the balloon, Naruto," Kakashi remarked. "Pervy Sage said that too, but it wasn't enough. He wants me to pop it without my other hand to help." "Well, it does require very precise chakra control," Kakashi replied. "But is it really that important? Pervy Sage said the 4th Hokage made it, and the only other person who could do it was himself. They're like super masters. Why is he bringing me to their standards?" Naruto said with a pout. "Actually, that's not true, Naruto." "Huh?" Naruto replied back in confusion. "As far as I know, there's actually 3 people who can perform the Rasengan. The 4th, the 5th." Kakashi paused and raised his hand up before finishing his statement. "And me." A brilliant blue vortex of chakra formed into a sphere before the eyes of the young shinobi. Naruto's face was one of complete shock. Sasuke, Sakura, and Ino had their eyes glued to Kakashi's hand. That's not fair. How are you doing that? Naruto said as he began to cope with the sight in front of him. See what I mean? The third person was you, and you're also a legendary ninja. You probably spied on Pervy Sage and I yesterday and copied it with your Sharingan. He's right, Ino said. You're pretty much going to be the 6th Hokage anyway. Kakashi shuddered as he dropped his hand and the Rasengan dispersed. Don't say dreadful things like that, please. And no, I actually didn't copy it at all. That's not even possible. I figured out how to do the Rasengan when I was right around your guys' age. Naruto's jaw had somehow managed to drop even further than before. Come on, Naruto. I promise I'm not just saying this to brag. If I could figure out at your age, you can do it too. You really think so? Naruto asked. You're trying to control and add all that chakra with your first hand, and then just using your second hand when it starts to fall apart. How else would I do it? Naruto asked. Try instead adding little bits of chakra to the parts of the rotation you know will be the hardest. Even if you can already complete that part of the rotation with your first hand, if you do that, you will be able to practice every stage of the rotation instead of just trying to build up the vortex from scratch and overly relying on your free hand to finish the job. Naruto stood and pondered Kakashi's words before walking over to the crate and taking one of the water balloons. So you mean like this? He asked, and proceeded to start on the water balloon. Naruto added help from his free hand from the very beginning this time, but exerted less effort with it, only applying enough to get through the most difficult part of the rotation. He continued with this, only applying precise amounts of pressure, and soon enough, he had the water balloon moving incredibly wild. Oh crap, Naruto said excitedly. See? You're holding with one hand a level of rotation in the balloon you previously could only reach with two hands, and were completely unable to maintain it. Naruto smiled brightly and raised his hand once more. Wait, said Kakashi. But I'm about to pop it, Naruto replied impatiently. Exactly. I know you managed to use far less help from your left hand this time, but still I want you to try your absolute hardest to finish popping it without your left hand. If you say so, Naruto replied as he put all his focus back into the water balloon. He grimaced as he physically felt his hand ache from trying to maintain the vortex. Naruto looked down at the balloon as if it were his enemy. For what seemed like ages, he battled with his latex nemesis, and moments before he had given up, he won. The balloon not only popped, but the water contained inside of it splashed and hit everyone but Sakura? Sakura's there? Did they mean Ino? I don't know, maybe Sakura was there. Sakura began to laugh at the expense of everyone else. That was hilarious, she said in between snorts. Sasuke, you kept leaning your head in. Sakura continued laughing. And oh no, I guess Sakura is there. And you just kept walking towards him like it wasn't clearly about to explode. Ino tried to defend herself, but she could only manage a couple of word-like sounds before Sakura began practically screeching once more. There's literally yellow latex on your cheek. Sakura, Ino finally replied with a venom in her voice that finally quieted Sakura down. I recommend you don't let your guard down when we spar today. Sakura's face twisted into fear and Naruto turned towards Sasuke. Oi, were they always like that? No, Sasuke replied. They've been rubbing off on each other, and sometimes it's annoying. Kakashi deadpanned as much as someone's face could deadpan when half of it was covered up. Are you kids too young to be tired of the opposite sex already? Ino lay on the grass field exhausted. Sakura had continued to be an absolute wench while sparring, and Kakashi hadn't allowed Ino to release any tension on her seals. She had spent 6 hours trying to hit the pink-haired demon, who would continually cast subtle genjutsu on her. Just as she was about to hit Sakura, whoosh, Sakura was actually 2 inches to the right of where Ino's eyes had told her she was. Finally getting up, Ino shifted her attention to Naruto. The boy had been going at it the entire time, only stopping when Kakashi had brought him, a little more than everyone else, food and basically forced him to stop. "Hey, Naruto, how long are you gonna stay here?" she asked. Naruto glanced at her in confusion. He replied. "Well, it's already dark out," Ino said. Naruto looked around for the first time and realized they were alone. Even Sasuke left. Guess I got too caught up and didn't notice. This balloon is gonna kill me. "Come on, you're being dramatic, Naruto," she teased. "I'm not. Here, you try it then, Ino," Naruto said, as he handed her the water balloon. Ino took it in her hand and focused on the chakra in her hands. The balloon began to stir a little and Ino's face lit up. However, it darkened when she discovered keeping the vortex going was almost impossible, and she couldn't get her chakra to continuously spin inside the balloon. Fine, maybe it's kinda hard," she replied playfully. "Are you tired though? You already slept here last night, didn't you?" "He did?" "Oh, that's where he was last night, alright." "Don't worry about it, Ino. I'm gonna pop it real soon. I can't just give up on it now when I'm so close." "Haven't heard any of them pop in like half an hour though," she replied. "That's just cause I've been practicing with my left hand. My right one got tired, but the last one I popped, I did almost entirely with one hand," he said. "Alright." "No way, you've been doing this for like 10 hours now. Bet you can't even pop a tiny water balloon," she giggled. "Can too, you'll just have to stay and see," Naruto said. "Okay, tell you what," Ino said, handing him the balloon. "Pop this right now and I'll pay for your ramen tonight." Naruto's eyes lit up brighter than the sun. "Seriously?" "But only 2 bowls. I'm not responsible for your gluttony," she joked. "You have a deal, Mrs. Brain Bouncer," Naruto replied. Ino laughed out loud at the nickname. "Please don't start calling me that. Now enough stalling. Let's see you pop this thing." Yeah, watch this." Naruto outstretched his hand so they could both clearly see the balloon. Ino smirked when nothing happened for the first few moments. Her smirk changed when the balloon finally started to stir. "See, the first part of rotation is actually the last part I haven't done unassisted." True to Naruto's words, Ino noticed that after the slow initial stir, the balloon started to twist and contort very quickly. After a moment of it moving in a very unballoon-like shape, it finally gave a violent pop, splashing water all over the both of them. "Alright, I did it!" Naruto cheered while Ino stared in disbelief. She was finally brought out of her daze when she realized Naruto had stopped cheering and was looking at her sheepishly. "Sorry, Ino, I didn't mean to make you wet." Ino's mind raced for a moment. Huh? Why would he say something like that? "Oh, the balloon." Don't worry about it, Naruto. I was just impressed. I didn't think it would pop all of a sudden. That was actually pretty cool." "Only one thing left to do now," he replied, as he pulled a seal out of his pocket and began rapidly pressing it like a button, delivering some chakra. "Hurry, Sage, come on. I know you're not asleep yet. Not with that stack of paper." The seal exploded. Alright, maybe explode was a bit of an exaggeration. It was only small enough to burn Naruto's fingers, but it was enough to shut him up while he nursed his singed hand. "Did you have to do that?" Ino asked in irritation. "I didn't know it'd explode like that," he whined in response. "Serves you right," came the deep, steady voice of the Hokage from behind them. Ino and Naruto both leapt back in surprise. "Jiraiya, where did you come from?" Naruto exclaimed. Ino smirked as she noticed him use the Sannin's real name for once. "You know, you don't have to activate the seal over and over again. It worked the first time," Jiraiya said in annoyance. "But did you have to blow my fingers up?" Naruto asked back. "I didn't do anything, Naruto. Kakashi designed the seal to release electricity and vibrate on the other hand. You're the one that kept pushing chakra through and overloaded the seal. Why'd you call me here anyway?" Naruto's face lit up. "Because I finally popped your silly little balloon with one hand." Jiraiya laughed out loud dismissively. "You don't expect me to believe that, Naruto. You could barely make it budge yesterday afternoon. I'll believe it when you show me, Jiraiya retorted and turned around to walk away. What do you mean you don't believe me? I did pop it. Ino was here. She saw it herself, Naruto exclaimed. He really did pop it with one hand, Lord Hokage. He's probably too tired to do it now, but I saw it with my own eyes, sir, Ino defended. I still don't believe it. You're close with this woman. You think I'm gonna believe your girlfriend's lies if I don't believe yours? He teased. We're not, Ino tried. Pervy Sage, you don't understand. Kakashi came with them and helped me, Naruto proceeded to give a poor re-explanation of Kakashi's words of wisdom. It seemed to be sufficient for Jiraiya to understand. Jiraiya replied while rubbing his chin. That does sound like some good advice. If you really followed it, I suppose it's possible. Let's discuss it over dinner. The hearty laugh of the Hokage echoed through Ichiraku Ramen. I can't tell you how much I've missed this, Naruto. Being Hokage really takes up all your time. Well, you've done a good job of keeping us busy too, Naruto replied. There's a lot to do. The village won't just repair itself. What are you complaining about anyways? You get paid extra for all the shadow clones you had running around here, Jiraiya replied. I do remember that day when 20 Narutos helped rebuild the shop next to my family's, Ino said. All those clones were really exhausting. I was too tired to have any fun. We were free of Naruto's pranks for 6 whole weeks. Konoha will never be in such a time of peace again, Ino joked. Say, Naruto, you're being paid much more now, especially as a chunin. Why don't you move out of that rundown place you're in? I could get you priority on a lot of nice places, especially closer to the shopping district. Oh, that? No, that's okay. I was thinking about saving my money for now. My apartment suffered a bit of damage from the invasion. The landlord finally got off his butt and renovated the place, so it's not so bad. How responsible of you, Naruto, Ino quipped. What makes you think I can't be responsible, Ms. Oops, I forgot we had an A-rank mission today and slept in. That's the only time that ever happened, she said flustered. Twice in a row, Naruto pressed. Like I said, Ino replied, caught off guard by Naruto teasing her back for once. Jiraiya leaned down and held his hand to cover his mouth from Ino's eyes and ears. Now seriously, Naruto, I can get you a place right across from her shop. She'll be able to come over whenever you want, he said slyly. Stop being a pervert, Naruto replied curtly. Who's being a pervert? Ino asked. The pervert, obviously, Naruto replied. You know, we charge perverts extra, right? Came the voice of a young woman handing them their ramen. Ayame, that's the Hokage, replied Ichiraku, but she completely ignored him as she high-fived Naruto. You're getting too confident dragging my name through the mud, Brad, Jiraiya said to Naruto. Might have to assign you a mission far, far away. Before Naruto could respond, the heavy drunk footsteps of a woman loudly stumbled their way onto the other end of the stand. I'll have one miso ramen, she said, before her head collapsed into her arms and she began to snore. She comes and goes as she pleases. I'll just become like her, Naruto replied, but Jiraiya didn't take his joke in jest and his face contorted into one of frustration. Tsunade, Jiraiya called out. Tsunade, he said a little louder. 100 and... Before he could finish, she had pounced from her seat and grabbed him by the throat ready to punch. Don't you dare finish that, she threatened. Jiraiya barely had enough time to signal his Ambu-guard to not attack her. Oh, there you are. I thought you'd left already. Maybe you're still curious about some things. Naruto's mouth nearly opened to say something, but he stopped himself. Her glare had a level of hatred that was extreme to give a former teammate. Don't flatter yourself, Jiraiya. I don't give a dang if he's like my brother or like Don. We both know how that turned out. He's your mess to clean up. I don't want to be involved in it. It's not what it looked like from my vantage point. Tsunade said nothing, let him go, and turned back towards her seat. Before passing Ino and Naruto, she stopped and spoke. You're young. You want to be a great shinobi. My advice? Don't. Brings you nothing but pain and suffering. Even more if you try to fix it all. That's nothing but a fool's errand. Even if you survive it all, even if you survive it all, don't expect your dreams to be intact, let alone your bond with each other. Naruto again tried to say something, but Jiraiya's firm hand held his arm. "Don't retaliate," was the silent message the Hokage's face communicated to him. "I'll have to go," she said, dropping some money on the table. "Of course, Lady Tsunade." The awkward air didn't fully dissipate, and the trio ate with few words being exchanged. Nearly finished with their meal, Ino took out her purse and paid for her and Naruto's bowl. "Oi, Naruto, don't make a lady pay for your meal. You should know better than that. I'm gonna have to teach you about being a gentleman," Jiraiya said. "It's okay, Lord Hokage. Don't dig into Naruto too much. I actually bet Naruto he couldn't pop the balloon." Subtle way to reinforce the Naruto pop the balloon lie. You two might make decent shinobi after all. Pervy sage. "Just messing with you," he chuckled. "Speaking of which, I'll give you what you need for the next step." Naruto and Ino watched as he dug into his shirt and materialized a rubber ball. "Wait, not this again," Naruto pouted. "Not that you can properly create spin. It's time to build up power. The next step is to pop this rubber ball." Naruto took the ball from Jiraiya. After giving it a light squeeze, he noted it was rather dense, and it would probably not bounce too high. Impulsively, he attempted to pop it. Even just a half hour after popping the water balloon, Naruto could feel how easy the chakra manipulation came to him. However, his victory was short-lived, as he realized the rubber ball continued to sit motionlessly in his hands. Even after flooding chakra to his hands, he could not change the form of the ball in any way. Not so easy, is it? With most jutsu, you mold chakra inside your body and then release it in some way. This jutsu is incredible chakra dense, combined with the fact that you mold the chakra outside of your body. Oh, basically, this step is gonna force you to push far more chakra out of your body, far more quickly. I feel like my arm is gonna fall off already. Don't worry, it should only take a week to pop it. Naruto passed out on the ramen stand. Rasengan Part 2. You can never have too many of those. 2 days later, Naruto and Ino were walking down the streets of Konoha, on their way to pick something up for Kakashi. "Naruto, how did you sleep for 36 hours? I don't believe you," Ino said. "I'm not lying, really. I must have been tired from popping the water balloons," he yawned. "But that would mean you went without eating for more than 3 hours. That's hard to believe too." Before Naruto could reply, Ino had stopped and turned into a shop. Apparently, this was their destination. "Oh, Tenten family owned this place? I've never seen it before." "We can look around a bit then. I'm sure Asuma and Kakashi won't mind." They walked around the shop, through the aisles, and observed the uncommon tools that lined the shelves. Whoa, this shuriken is huge and has 6 points? Ino wasn't about to let their previous conversation fizzle out. "Alright, so I was actually sort of wondering about the other night. What was up with Jiraiya and Tsunade?" Oh, that? Well, I don't think the Sanin has the best relationship with the other one. I mean, one of them is Orochimaru, so it makes you think, you know? "Yeah, but Tsunade is something weird. Like she was talking to Jiraiya about her brother and some other dude, and she was comparing them to you." "I don't really know who they are. Pervy Sage only ever told me she had it rough." Ino narrowed her eyes, not convinced. "I swear, I don't know anything else. I've never even talked to the cranky old hag. She just spied on me while I was trying to pop the water balloon, probably drunk." How Naruto's answer always managed to give her more questions Ino didn't know. Before she could pry any further, someone interrupted them. "Naruto." The pair turned to see Neji Hyuga, looking back at them, a strange person to casually talk to Naruto. Ino wondered if he was bitter about the outcome of their match. He seemed awfully confident Naruto was gonna lose. Was he gonna ask for a rematch? "Oh, hi Neji," Naruto replied, equally as confused as Ino. "Forgive the intrusion. I just hadn't had the opportunity to speak to you. We haven't been assigned on any missions together." "Yeah, Jiraiya's picky sometimes. Most of my missions are with my cell or Team 10. So, that's it. Anyways, I just wanted to thank you. Thank me? Yes, when we fought, I spoke about faith, telling you it was foolish to try and defy what I defined as your fate. All the while I had spent my life trying to defy my own. You showed me my hypocrisy, and ever since then, a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I no longer hate myself for trying to escape my fate, and I no longer hate Hinata for also having trouble conforming to her own, although it may be a while before she can forgive me. Regardless, I am grateful to you for that. Naruto was shocked by Neji's sincerity. He smiled as he understood everything Neji was trying to tell him. Don't mention it. When I become Hokage, I'll do everything I can to stop the Hyuga from doing that to you guys. Neji smiled back. Very well then, I'll let you two continue. Ino followed Naruto as he picked things up from the shelves, making idle talk about Neji Hyuga's more approachable demeanor. When Naruto had finished, they went to the counter where they met Tenten, who rang up their items and announced their total. Huh? Naruto responded, confused. Is there a problem? Tenten asked. I thought it'd be much more than that. The other shops always charge me more, Naruto mumbled as he retrieved the money. Our shop's actually one of the higher end ones in the district. Not sure why the other ones are charging you so much. What? Don't worry, Naruto. I'll always give you a good deal here. A good deal just for me? Naruto asked. Yeah, of course, she said cheerily, and leaned in to speak quietly to the pair. Ever since he beat Neji, he's been a lot nicer to all of us. I don't know how, but you flipped some switch. Tenten retreated back behind the counter. So don't worry about those other shops, Naruto. Just come here. Thanks, Tenten. Naruto did his best to seem normal, but wasn't used to the barrage of niceness he was receiving today. His happy mood had almost made him turn around and leave the shop, but Ino brought him back to reality. Wait, dummy, we didn't come here to shop, remember? Oh, right, he replied sheepishly. Kakashi-sensei told us he ordered something from you guys and asked us to pick it up. Tenten disappeared into the back of the shop and reappeared with a box in her hands. Here you go, special order for Kakashi Hatake, and handed the box to Ino. The two said goodbye to Tenten and headed out of the shop. They were going to head straight back, but Naruto insisted they drop his stuff at his apartment. Ino scolded him for buying too much before they walked in the direction of his apartment. Hokage was right, Naruto. You should move closer into town. This is taking too long. Relax, we're already here. Ino and Naruto reached the top floor and Ino watched Naruto fumble with his keys before unlocking the door to his apartment. Anticipation filled her mind. None of her friends lived alone, and she'd never been in another boy's place before. Naruto opened the door and everything looked normal. Ino didn't know what she was expecting, probably a ramen stand instead of a kitchen, but there was nothing of the sort, only a plushie instant ramen cup. Where'd you even get something like that? Before Ino had realized it, Naruto disappeared into his bedroom, leaving Ino standing in the living room, holding Kakashi's box. Without thinking, Ino placed the box on the dining table and walked towards Naruto's bedroom. Naruto, don't just disappear on me like that, she said as she walked into the dark room. Not seeing a soul, she walked past the open door from which she heard mumbling behind. Where did I put that thing? Ino found Naruto sitting on the floor, an assortment of shirts sprawled around them, and Naruto looking for something among them like a toddler looking for a toy he was going to shove up his nose. There you are, she started, but by the time she had seen the glint of the head band under her foot, it was too late. She slipped on it and then tripped on Naruto's feet and then fell on Naruto, shirtless, who had instinctively put one of his hands on her shoulder and the other one on her waist when trying to break her fall. The air was heavy, and only Naruto's impulsive voice could break through it. Did you imagine your first time in this position would be with Sasuke and not me, eh? He had enough decency to not act surprised when Ino slapped him. Asuma watched intensely as Kakashi opened the white box Naruto and Ino had fetched for him. Inside of it were two familiar-looking kunai. The blades resembled his own chakra blades, except for wood on the bottom of the hilt. Kakashi had pulled out the ink and brush included in the box and wrote a seal onto the wood, letting it dry before running his chakra through it. Copying me and your sensei. Not a good look, Kakashi, Asuma joked. I am the coffee ninja after all. Kakashi replied as he felt the weight of the kunai in his hands. Tell me then, what's the point of these? I mean, doesn't regular metal already conduct electricity? Kakashi finished for him. Yes, it does, but these are special. The wood has pathways to push chakra through the entire blade. Not only must it be incredibly expensive to create synthetic chakra pathways, I don't have a clue what you'll use it for. A demonstration is best, he replied. Kakashi ran chakra through the blade and instantaneously violent plasma engulfed the entire thing, and the familiar chirping noise of Kakashi's lightning blade could be heard. Made your Chidori purple? Asuma asked, unimpressed. No, the purple is because I've altered the Chidori. The only unique part of the metal is that it can withstand higher temperatures, so the lightning won't ever melt it. The real magic is in the wooden seal. Watch. Kakashi spun the electric blade around his fingers before throwing it straight ahead of him. Asuma didn't even have time to track it with his eyes, and only knew where it was after it made contact with a tree, leaving an awful exit wound, as well as one on the tree behind, and the tree behind that one, and the one behind that one. Eventually Asuma couldn't hear it anymore. That's nothing short of horrifying, Kakashi. That thing is good. In fact, it's too good. Now you're gonna make our poor students look for fancy kunai, he said, as he watched Shikamaru try to figure out what had awoken him and mutilated the tree next to him. Do you mean this kunai? Kakashi asked. Asuma was even more dumbfounded to find the kunai in Kakashi's hand as if he had never thrown it. Should have known the seal would do something like that. Now you're just making me feel inadequate. What else does it do? Light my spirit for me? When thrown, it takes 1/4 of the chakra of a Chidori charge of the same distance. Asuma couldn't believe the implications of this. Kakashi managed to practically triple his chakra in the last few months with training and that Sharingan trick. Now he had just watched a man take his already dangerous jutsu and solve all its imperfections, minimize the chakra cost, and no more vulnerability of the tunnel vision. Forget tunnel vision, his whole body was no longer involved in the charge. Asuma took a long drag from his... This was determined Kakashi Hatake. He was thankful to be on the man's good side. Shikamaru awoke more violently than he had ever before in his short life. The sound of a thunderstorm nearly blowing out his right eardrum. When he finally caught his bearings, he had looked to the right and found the remains of a tree next to them. It looked as though it had been stabbed through with a huge searing knife. Kakashi? Said the dull voice of Choji. Shikamaru sighed in relief, allowing himself to collapse back on the grass. The academy failed to teach them about modern politics or famous shinobi. He had caught to the disproportionate clout Team 7 Sensei carried, and eventually sized him up to be quite a bit stronger than any regular jonin he had met. He thought little of the lazy but stoic demeanor of the man. After all, his father had been just like that, but upon further examination, he realized Kakashi was just as eccentric as the Sannin were, teaching Sasuke of all people his murder move, allowing his team to go forward with a mission that should have probably ended them. The man had fended off Itachi Uchiha and somehow didn't die immediately. Rumor had it he had even threatened Orochimaru during the chunin exams and gotten away with it. Basically, he was a little psychopath who somehow continued to survive situations he simply shouldn't have. So when Ino, she had been a great source of information on more than just Naruto, told him that he was actively getting stronger, Shikamaru's understanding of Team 7 clicked completely. The awful team dynamic, their questionable at best mental health, constant attraction of trouble, and yet somehow incredible success. All of it was a projection of their sensei, and now Shikamaru was caught up on their web, forced to watch the exhausting way they lived their lives. Had they even have the energy for all of this? Wasn't there a law against being so troublesome all the time? Look at us. 2 teams training together, and yet it's still just you and me sitting here, said Choji. Some things never change, Choji. So, what do you think? Shikamaru's eyes darted towards Choji. About what? Them. I don't know what you're talking about, Shikamaru replied as he watched the clouds drift off. Of course, he knew exactly what Choji was talking about. You know who, Choji replied in exasperation. Naruto and Ino, or Sasuke and Sakura, Shikamaru replied. Huh? Of course Naruto and Ino, Sasuke and Sakura are just sitting there. They've been talking ever since we stopped training, not just today either. I saw them doing it last time we trained with Team 7 as well. All I see is Sakura sitting by the shade Sasuke's in. He hasn't moved. Neither of them have raised their voices once, he argued. That's because they're talking. If they weren't talking, they wouldn't be sitting together. Sakura doesn't like awkward silences. When Sasuke rejects her, she always leaves soon after. Sasuke also doesn't tolerate people he doesn't want to be around. He'll tell you to screw off when he feels like it, but they've been sitting there and Sakura's mouth has been moving. They're talking. You were asleep. Doesn't matter, they were doing it before I fell asleep, and they're still doing it now I'm awake. He's also more comfortable around her. They walk and stand closer to each other. You pay attention to a lot more than you let on, Shika. Anyway, you never answered my question. I don't care. I'm just glad she's not talking about Sasuke all the dang time anymore, Shikamaru said. It's all the same, Shika. Now it's Naruto she talks about. It's interesting though, Shikamaru rebutted. I know something about Naruto never added up. You're telling me you haven't figured it out? Choji asked. I have some suspicions, but I don't know if I should say something like that out loud. It's still kinda annoying, Choji added for a bit of silence. Getting jealous, Choji, Shikamaru asked slyly. It's not like that, Shika. I just think they should figure it out soon. It's too quiet when it's just you and me the whole time. Shikamaru put his hand back behind his head and closed his eyes again. He wouldn't admit it, but he agreed. Do you want to talk about it? Naruto asked awkwardly. No. The entire walk had been awkward. After Naruto and Ino had untangled themselves from each other, they had difficulty making eye contact the entire way back. After many unsuccessful attempts at conversations, they had settled in silence, but Naruto was finally becoming sick of that silence. Thankfully, a violet blade of death interrupted the silence once more. Ino started to laugh. Look at Shikamaru. Naruto looked at him, wild eyes, short breathing, and generally distress. They were all features unusual to see on that boy, and they disappeared just as quickly as they came. You ever see him like that before? He asked with a smirk. Not in the 10 years I've known him. Not once at all, she replied. Hey, why are they looking at us? Naruto asked. Choji had been looking at them, and then Shikamaru had glanced at them as well, which was the equivalent of staring for him. Even from there, they can tell how weird we're being, Ino replied. They'd probably feel weird too if they knew the thing that we did in my bedroom. You seriously could have worded it better than that, Ino responded, as her cheeks turned crimson. I could have, but you're always teasing me, so I guess it's payback, he replied mischievously. Naruto and Ino laughed as they felt the tension in the air diffuse. Naruto felt relief wash over him as the familiar comfort came back. He didn't know when they had gotten uncomfortable like this, but he was glad it was back to normal again. Sasuke and Sakura, two teammates taking their well-deserved break, leaned against a tree together. Despite the fact they weren't facing each other, both of them had been in light conversation for a while now, about training, about missions, about all the little things. Hey, Sasuke, you think it's interesting how they talk so much now? If you're talking about Naruto and Ino, then no, he replied. Sakura was dismayed at his answer. Ever since Sasuke had begun talking to her more, she learned she had to be careful with him. His boundaries were like a proximity bomb. He'd shut back down if she got too close to them. Why is that? She asked. Because they're both loud and obnoxious. They're perfect for each other, he replied jokingly. She had yet to get used to his joking. Having always been serious before, a playful tone coming out of his mouth was extremely foreign to her. She laughed back at his joke and silence fell over them again. I know you probably know this, but I don't hate Naruto. I know I was rude to him when we first became a team. I was insensitive about him being an orphan, and I also didn't realize you guys have some sort of friendship. I was really stupid. It's okay, Sakura. I get it. Naruto's one of the only people who knows what it's like to be alone. I'm glad that you're able to see the type of guy he is now. Sakura fidgeted with a twig, her nerves building up because of the question she was about to ask. No matter how much she liked Sasuke and was excited about being with him, she couldn't stand not knowing why things had changed now. Sasuke, why'd you start talking to me? She finally asked. Silence. It's just that. Naruto seems to be the person you're closest with, and you don't talk with them all that much. I've always been pinning for your attention, probably annoying you, and then coming back again and again. Why did you decide to start talking with me like this?" More silence, this time in which no one spoke, seemed boundless, and Sakura's nerves felt as though they were being stretched, folded, twisted, and then unraveled. No, we're not doing this. Back together again. She finally calmed down when she heard something from his direction. He took a breath and exhaled. Ever since the chunin exams, I had to admit to myself that Naruto was stronger than me. He beat Gaara and saved you, something I couldn't do. Sakura thought about what he was saying. Naruto had gotten much stronger. She remembered watching him beat Neji, the way he had come in uncaring of the notion everyone had of him, unwavered by the threat of someone like Neji, and ultimately turning the odds in his favors. It had made her aware of her growing admiration for him, and it was the first time she thought that his claim about being Hokage could come true. Of course, she understood how that might waver Sasuke, no matter how close in power they were. All this time, I've kept you guys at a distance, thinking it would keep me focused on my goal. But at the end of the day, Naruto was stronger than me. Naruto never kept us at a distance, always talking to us even when we dismissed him. It makes me think that I don't know how to be like this. I have to be strong to avenge my clan, but I don't need to stay away from you guys to do it. That's just me letting my brother taunt me. I see, she replied. I guess I didn't realize just how many different ways that your brother affected you. From this vantage point, they had a perfect view of Kakashi launching the blade and teleporting it back into his hands. You're gonna ask him to teach you that, aren't you? She asked. Want me to teach you too? He joked as he watched Kakashi explain the whole thing to Asuma. Asuma Sarutobi groaned as his calf muscles seared, just barely escaping from his own chakra blade. You've gotten much better at this lately. Keep it up like this, and I might get you chakra blades of your own, he said with a smirk as he watched Naruto leap towards him once more. Yeah, well, with all the chakra it takes trying to pop that rubber ball, stuff like this is a piece of cake now. Naruto twisted his body and narrowly avoided Asuma's stab at his shoulder. Naruto took this as an opening and struck at Asuma's exposed face, but before his fist could make contact, Naruto's body was contorted into an uncomfortable position. Asuma's foot pushed down on Naruto's back while pulling his arm out behind him. His cigarette still in, face completely devoid of struggle. If Naruto could see Asuma right now, he'd probably look really cool. Naruto groaned in frustration. You and Kakashi every time somehow managed to get me in the same position. Hey, yo. Asuma let Naruto free and smiled. Well, Naruto, it's not enough to just spar with your own shadow clones. The fastest way to get to our level is to actually spar us. None of your clones will do that move on you, even if you spar them 1,000 times. Naruto collapsed onto the grass to take a break. Asuma mirrored him and turned to talk to the boy. How's being a chunin? Naruto stared straight ahead and pondered the question. It's really hard, he admitted. I'm glad I'm getting harder missions now, but I didn't think it'd be so stressful all the time. Not so easy leading, is it? Everything I do I have to consider the lives of my teammates. Luckily, I usually lead C ranks, but you never know what sort of things will happen. Asuma laughed at that. They all think they're shinobi after they get their headbands on a stolen scroll. Just last week, we were all the way north, just me and Choji. Some dude running from his taxes should have been harmless. We found him in a bar and he just pulled a fireball out of nowhere. That bar could have burned down. I barely got Choji out of the way in time. Don't beat yourself up over it, kid. Choji's all good, isn't he? You made chunin because we were confident in your ability to complete missions, Asuma replied. I know, but I can't get it out of my mind. Ino and I went on an A rank with Guy. I know you and Jiraiya said she's chunin level and Guy was with us the whole time, but I kept waiting for something to go wrong. Asuma took a long drag before responding. It's probably because of how your first C rank went. Honestly, it's a good thing. The moment you get too comfortable is the moment everything goes wrong. Naruto sighed. He moved his attention towards the Rasengan again. Luckily, the rubber ball was just within arm's reach, and he practiced again to burst it. Didn't it used to be white? Asuma asked. The first one was white. I actually was able to puncture it, but Jiraiya said it has to pop. Leave it to those prodigy types to make everything hard, Asuma joked. Tell me about it. I've been at this for almost a week now. Couldn't I just have a lighter ball? I mean, look at this thing, he replied, and threw the ball at Asuma. Asuma caught the ball in his hand with a loud smack. Sheesh, Naruto. Where did he even get a ball this dense? I don't know, he must have manifested it somehow. I've never seen something like this, Naruto replied. Wouldn't be a surprise. Those just become Hokage and all of a sudden they start becoming too wise for their own good. Probably has some super secret rubber manufacturing jutsu locked up in those confidential libraries. Naruto and Asuma laughed together while they theorized all the wacky jutsus that might be locked up in the Hokage Tower. Asuma wasn't his sensei the same way Kakashi or Jiraiya were, but he felt spirits lift up each time he trained with Team 10. So, the third was your old man, Naruto said, when their laughter died down. Yup, Asuma replied as he looked off into the distance. One day, he was your dad, and the next, Naruto's voice trailed off. Actually, he was Hokage, since before I was born. But yeah, he sort of had to be everyone's dad. Sometimes, I really hated it. One day, he came to our class and just talked to the students, you know? He gave us one of his little life lessons, and I was mad. I've heard it a million times, and here he was recycling it, and everyone else looked at him like he was telling them the secret to the universe. And if I become Hokage one day, I'll have to do that too, Naruto replied. It's an important job there is. As a leader, sometimes you have to compromise familial bonds for the bond with your community. I'm not saying we didn't have a good bond, I just wished I hadn't taken our time together for granted. I'm pretty sure he felt the same by the end of it all. So, that's how it is, Naruto replied, and they both sat together in a comfortable silence until the sky finally turned orange and it was time to head back home. 4 days later, Naruto popped the balloon. He made sure to give Jiraiya a front row seat, even if it meant literally blowing up the balloon in their faces. Naruto studied Jiraiya's satisfied face when the ball popped. After all, he didn't know how many more moments like this he would have with the Hokage. Naruto lied in the grass of the training grounds. At this point, laying here was more familiar than laying in his own bed. His open jacket allowed the cool breeze to his skin, scattered all over him. The remains of countless balloons resembled confetti. Freaking balloons. It was always balloons with this jutsu. When Jiraiya had given him the empty balloon after successfully popping the rubber ball, Naruto had actually laughed out loud, convinced it was a joke. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't even Negan. He had to actually train with these balloons again? You formed the vortex, then you made it strong enough to pop the rubber ball. Now I need you to maintain its spherical shape. So instead of popping the balloon, I need you to keep it intact now. The only time it should pop is when you stick a needle in it and reveal a fully formed Rasengan. That's what he said, and since then, Naruto had popped more balloons than he could count. In fact, he had ended up buying so many the lady at the shop had just suggested he buy a jumbo pack, and his cheeks had a permanent flush on them from constantly blowing up new ones. Fancy meeting you here. The masked menace himself had arrived, along with a blonde menace and an Anbu with purple hair. Where's Sasuke and Sakura? Naruto asked when he noted the absence of his teammates. They'll be working on their genjutsu with me. I brought Ino here to work with Jiraiya? Naruto finished for him, and watched in amusement as the faces looking down at him lit up in surprise. He'd almost made a joke to Kakashi, asking if a woman was finally okay with the face he was hiding beneath his mask, but his breath hitched in his throat at the last moment. Jiraiya took her mask off and looked towards Kakashi. You're not supposed to tell him the name of Amu Black Ops, Kakashi, Jiraiya said playfully, although there was an underlying worry behind her voice. I did no such thing. Seems like my student here isn't so bad at espionage, even if he wears orange all day, Kakashi replied. You wouldn't mind telling us your secrets, would you now, Naruto? The last part sounded more like an accusation, although considering how Naruto got his genin rank in the first place, the implications had some ground in reality. I've seen her in civilian attire before, in the shopping district. My clones were moving debris and caught someone saying her name, he replied. Of course, the truth was there was no way he'd remember something that small. He had actually seen her once again with Kakashi. After Hiruzen's funeral, they were talking about Hayate. Naruto cringed mentally at the blunder he had just avoided. He would not have been able to handle the awkwardness of teasing Kakashi at the expense of a woman whose lover had just died. Weird thing to connect the dots on, Ino mumbled. Anyway, Jiraiya will be training Ino in her kenjutsu here. We just wanted to make sure we weren't interrupting something, he said, as his eyes scanned the littered balloons. Ino, you slash and stab our ears with your voice all day already. Are you sure you even need lessons on how to do it with swords? Naruto asked. Ino kicked Naruto in the stomach and smirked as she watched him flinch. Funny, Naruto. We can usually hear your voice from across the village. Yeah, he replied as he sat up, noticing Kakashi had already vanished. When he looked back up, he noticed Ino's eyes had lingered to his abdomen. Huh? He thought someone like Ino would at least be more subtle if they were leering at you, but his mind panicked when he realized that he wasn't wearing a shirt under his jacket. Crap, she'd seen a seal. Ino would definitely ask about it. Who else had a giant sun-looking seal tattooed on their stomach? Luckily for Naruto, Jiraiya was impatient and already called Ino over to her. Crisis averted. For now. Naruto decided to sneak off for some mischief. He didn't want Ino to ask him questions. Sasuke Uchiha smirked as he watched the look in Sakura's eyes flicker. Finally, he'd caught her. As embarrassing as it was to say, even with his Sharingan, Sasuke struggled to compete with Sakura's genjutsu. Kakashi noted that she was frighteningly adept at commanding her chakra within a genjutsu, but it was over now. After the last strike, instead of dodging, he'd chosen to grab her hands, both of them. She'd panicked and looked him in the eye. He finally got to initiate his genjutsu. Sasuke's eyes darted around and he observed the chakra pathways all around her brain. He decided this time he'd try to make her think she was melting, but just as he was about to start messing with her nervous system, his whole world somersaulted. Suddenly his back was against the dry grass. The cool sensation of a kunai held up to his throat. His eyes traveled up the kunai, along with a slender arm, and finally, the triumphant face of his pink-haired friend sitting on top of him. How long have you been waiting to get me in this position, Sakura? He asked, in a last-ditch attempt to throw her off, but she showed no indication that his voice even reached her ears. You're too dependent on your eyes, Sasuke. You never anticipated they'll betray you, she replied. Sasuke sighed in defeat. How'd you escape then? I'd already caught you. That's the thing. I never escaped. You were the one who got caught. Huh? When Kakashi does genjutsu on someone, their eyes sorta go lifeless for a second. It took a lot of practice, but I was able to replicate the look eventually. She proceeded to do it one more time for demonstration. Once you thought you were going to perform genjutsu, it was pretty easy to make you think you actually were. Sasuke grumbled in frustration. I had chakra shielding my hands though. I would have noticed if you tried to transfer chakra through them. Oh, but you didn't transfer it through your hands, Sasuke, Kakashi finally intervened. Huh? Then how far back did you? Water release, she replied, and Sasuke's mind traveled back to when she had spit a bucket worth of water in his face. It was unexpected, he could give her that, but it was also a splash of water. It wasn't gonna stop him from striking. He had proceeded to tease her about it, telling her he wasn't thirsty right now. That water was mostly made with my own chakra, and then I waited till it seeped into the chakra pathways on your face. She finished with a grin and got up off him. So, even with a nature release, you can initiate a genjutsu. Sakura wins for today, Sasuke. She exploited your arrogance perfectly, Kakashi said to him. Even now he kept being reminded what a mistake it was to keep his team at arm's length. His brooding was interrupted by an orange comet falling out of a tree. Come to do more spying? Kakashi asked as Naruto recovered from his tumbling. You can't blame me, Kakashi. Who could miss out on this? I mean, look at him. He just lost his Sakura. What's that supposed to mean? Sakura snapped at him angrily. Nothing? Naruto's voice was suddenly a much higher pitch. You want some of what he had? Sakura had begun to approach Naruto like prey, backing him into the tree he had fallen out of. How do you know I'm not already in your head? No, please. Don't do horrible things to me. I promise I won't ever ask you out again. He still does that? Oh, it's referring to the past. Never mind. Naruto had entered a complete state of panic, and it was only hidden when Sakura grew 10 times before his eyes. Some part of his brain tried to tell him it wasn't real, but it didn't get through the part of his brain that told him the earth was quaking underneath them. Sakura's gigantic form now covered the sun. Her cruel face twisted into an evil smirk as she slowly lifted up her gigantic foot. We're far past the point, balloon boy, taunted the demonic voice of Mega Sakura. Adrenaline had rapidly pumped through his body, and his horror had grown to unfathomable levels. Naruto completely devolved into hyperventilation and unintelligible pleas for mercy. The part of his ears that hadn't been completely hijacked told him that Sasuke was bursting out in laughter at him, but it still didn't take him out of the illusion, and Naruto threw his hand in front of his face in an attempt to shield himself, but Sakura's gigantic sandal never came down. In fact, that was that moment that the illusion vanished altogether. Never thought you'd break it like that, Naruto, Sakura said in shock, and Naruto finally emerged from his fetal position. He looked down at his hand and found a brilliant blue sphere, a fully formed Rasengan, and no balloon in sight. Good job, Naruto, praised Kakashi, and the only thing that surrounded his mood was Sasuke's second outburst of laughter. I should hit you with this. I'm the fourth person to ever pull it off, you know, Naruto threatened. Go ahead, it's not going to stop me from telling everyone of your future offsprings the tale of the legendary kicking and screaming Naruto's defending himself from an imaginary Sakura giant. From time to time, Naruto missed the days when it seemed like Sasuke was incapable of telling a joke. Rambunctious Rhino. It was a B-rank search and retrieve mission. They weren't tasked with returning to the site of a blown-up rogue nin hideout. Jiraiya had told him that a jonin on an S-rank had left an important scroll behind. After blowing up the majority of the structure, most of the dangerous shinobi had been taken out, and the ones they would run into probably wouldn't be too difficult to take out. Should be an easy mission, Shikamaru said to himself once it was all over. The problem was that they were shinobi and nothing was easy, and everything had to be a drag. Okay, he's coming this way. You need to do the switch quickly and quietly so the oaf up front doesn't realize. Yeah, I know, Shikamaru. You've done this a million times before. This time it was Naruto who spoke. Still don't get why we don't just go up there and take them out ourselves. Because we probably won't be able to do it fast enough without them seeing we're Leaf Nin. This gang is notorious for being vengeful. They might decide to attack every Leaf Shinobi they come across. If they do, see us, we'll have to make sure we kill them all. And then that makes things more messy and confusing, Shikamaru replied. This plan isn't messy and confusing already. This could go wrong in so many ways, since you're confined by Ino's side until she comes back. Shikamaru frowned. It wasn't that Naruto was a bad leader. In fact, he had become comfortable and adept at the role pretty quickly after the first few missions. The problem was he was always paranoid, the worst outcomes in the forefront of his mind. It was strange to see the usually optimistic boy turn this way when it was his turn to lead. Not to mention his self-sacrificial tendencies, of course. Shikamaru couldn't blame him. He understood the pressure Naruto was feeling, to be in charge of every decision, to be responsible for the lives of your teammates. It was an overwhelming role for anyone, let alone a 14-year-old boy, and he was about ready to level with him until Naruto cut in first. Look, Shikamaru, you're a smart guy. If you say those guys look like a lot for us to handle, I'll trust you. But if anything goes wrong, I'm calling it off and blasting those guys before they can blast us. Shikamaru nodded, accepting this compromise. Okay, enough guys, came Ino's voice. We need to get in place, he's only 20 feet away now. They nodded at each other and took their places. Ino and Shikamaru behind a bush and Naruto up in a tree. The rustling of the leaves in the ground became louder as the rogue nin got closer to them. He emerged out from behind the tree muttering to himself. Naruto observed the man for a moment. He was unable to find any headband to identify him. He was a tall, broad, dark-haired man, and Naruto knew if he wanted to take him down, he'd have to be quick about it. His thoughts were interrupted when he heard Ino's quiet voice across the clearing, and suddenly, the man's demeanor changed entirely. The man looked up at him and gave him a thumbs up. Perfect. This part of the plan had gone smoothly. Now all he had to do was trail behind Ino and hope the other rogue nin didn't spontaneously figure out she was an imposter and maim her before she could return to her body. Ino stopped in front of the door to greet the frail, lanky looking man standing in front of it. About time. Come on, we need to get whatever's left here and run. One of those villagers knows about this place. Reckon it's the leaf, said the man. Yeah, those leaf bastards, Ino replied in a failed attempt to sound normal. Naruto jumped down from the trees as they entered the compound. Quietly following them, kunai in hand, he crept in the compound, careful not to step on anything or trip, but it was difficult because the previous jonin had damaged the place and debris were everywhere. Despite most of the compound being in a shambles, it still happened to be the huge, and Naruto realized Ino was unlikely to find it anytime soon. As quietly as he could, Naruto summoned 2 shadow clones to his side, instructing to look for the scroll. He continued following Ino and the other shinobi. He watched as Ino and the other rogue nin entered the room together. Naruto rolled down and knelt just outside the room, and was now in earshot of their conversation. He closed his eyes trying to focus on it. Wait, was that 4 voices? Well, whoever they were, they left something here, said one of the voices, and Naruto heard the clang of what sounded like a scroll echoing off the table. Any idea what's inside? Came the voice of the man Ino was inside. No, we couldn't open it. Although, I don't know why you're even bothering asking, Kazuru. Naruto held his breath. The air in the room had just dropped 10 degrees. What do you mean? Ino asked as calmly as she could through Kazuru's body. Don't play stupid, Kazuru, came a voice Naruto hadn't heard yet. We all know you're still working for the sand. Don't think drawing a clumsy little line through your headband makes us instantly trust you. Crap, just their luck. Of course they had to pick the one criminal who was actually just a really bad spy. Naruto cursed under his breath and dispelled the shadow clone he had previously conjured. Their memories came back and Naruto noted one of them had found an unused explosive nearby. Desperately trying to figure out how to save Ino, his thoughts were interrupted by the confusion of everyone in the room. He just passed out? You think he killed himself? No, he's still breathing. Naruto let out a sigh of relief. Ino had gotten out in time. Now he just needed a way out safely. Conjuring up 3 shadow clones, he set his plan in motion. He watched as one shadow clone went off in one direction, while the other one made the best transformation of Kazuru he could manage, the third one hiding in the shadow. The Kazuru clone stepped in front of the door, revealing himself by throwing a kunai at the table. In the ensuing commotion, Naruto sprinted off, praying his shadow clone could run them in circles for long enough. He sprinted off through the compound, weaving in and out of the broken down halls, careful not to trip over debris. The echoes of his shadow clone and the rogue nin got more and more difficult to hear as he saw light again. Naruto made a giant leap and flew through the entrance. Shikamaru and Ino both looked relieved to see him. Naruto! They both exclaimed in relief, but it didn't last long as Naruto grabbed them both and tackled them to the ground. "What's the big idea?" complained Ino, but before Naruto could explain, an earth-shattering explosion drowned out all their voices. They dragged each other behind a tree in an attempt to shelter themselves from flying debris, and it took several minutes for the ringing in their ears to dissipate. When it finally did, Naruto smirked and materialized something from the smoldering remains of his jacket. Ino gasped in shock at the sight of the scroll. "Naruto, that was amazing. How did you..." "Well, after I distracted them all it took was one shadow clone slipping back into the room and tossing it back to me," he said, pleased with himself. "That was brilliant, Naruto," Shikamaru cut in. "But we got lucky. I'm assuming you used explosives left over from the previous explosion." Naruto nodded in confirmation. "We might not be so lucky next time," he remarked. Ino said there were 4 others. "Are you sure you got them all?" Before Naruto could answer, he was interrupted by the sound of concrete debris flying far into the air and violently coming back down. The trio turned their heads and looked out into the remains, where they saw the frail-looking man who had been sitting at the front of the compound. "Seriously? He was the one that survived all of that? He looks like a ramen noodle," Ino remarked incredulously. "Well, apparently, looks can in fact be deceiving," Shikamaru replied exhaustedly. "I don't think he noticed us yet," Ino pointed out. "Shikamaru, think you can catch him in a shadow possession?" "I don't think that's the best way to go about this. We should just leave. After all, we have the scroll. Let's get out of here." Before anyone could argue, they heard the rogue nin yelling in the distance. "I know you're still around here somewhere, Kazuru. Don't think I'll let you go." The trio grimaced and Shikamaru sighed in defeat. "So much for that. Fine, I'll try to bind him with the shadow possession, and Naruto will hit him with the Rasengan. You can use it now, right?" Naruto nodded. "Let's distract them first then," Shikamaru said, but Naruto had already conjured up some shadow clones. "Naruto, wait," Shikamaru cut in. "Transform them into Kazuru. It's better if he doesn't realize he's up against a different group of shinobi." "Good thinking, Shikamaru," Naruto replied, as the clones transformed into Kazuru and bounded off into the trees, hoping to catch the rogue nin off guard from multiple directions. Naruto appeared out of a bush, kunai in hand, striking at his heart, but the man dodged and weaved effortlessly. Naruto felt himself getting frustrated. Not having seen someone move like this before, his movements had no structure and looked completely sloppy. However, each time he managed to narrowly dodge Naruto's slashes. Naruto jumped backward, hoping to create some distance, but as soon as he did, the frail shinobi changed directions and bolted forward, striking Naruto in the gut and slashing his face. It was that moment Naruto's transformation fell apart. He landed on his butt, looking up and realizing what had happened. "What's this? You're not Kazuru, you're just some brat," he snarled. Naruto's other clone had seen the opportunity and jumped at the man while he was distracted, allowing Naruto to retreat back to Shikamaru and Ino. "He's fast as crap, Shika," Naruto said. "Way too fast. He doesn't stand in one place long enough for me to bind him." "I'll show him some speed if that's what he wants," Naruto replied, as his breaths became deep and he focused inward, calling for the fox spirit again. He found himself doing that more often these days, and he wasn't sure if it was a good thing to be so comfortable wielding the power of a demon. "You again," came the voice of the QB from inside his head. "Let's not make this difficult this time," he snapped back. "And why not? Why should I help you at all? I could let you die. My chakra would come back together eventually," the QB replied in his booming voice. "Then you would have to let me die a long time ago," Naruto replied triumphantly. "You're becoming a cocky little... I'm not giving it to you." Naruto frowned and focused deeper. He learned over time that he could control how much he could pull out and started to force it. "What the are you doing?" the QB roared back, but Naruto ignored him as he felt the familiar warmth and flood of chakra emanate from his gut. Naruto sprinted forward, his movements sharper and stronger now. He rearranged his opponent. Re-engaged? Alright. Kunai clanged on kunai as the two traded blows. Naruto smirked a little as he noticed the other shinobi slowly but surely was being pushed back, but hesitated as he felt his body lose its vitality. He was punished for it and felt himself being swept off his feet. His opponent left deep and painful gashes in his body and proceeded to kick him straight into a tree. Freaking demon bastard. Naruto mumbled to himself as he once again forced the chakra out of the seal, making sure not to stop this time. He barely had enough time to dodge an onslaught of kunai, and when he had made it onto his feet, his face twisted into horror as he realized his opponent had just performed a summoning. Out of the smoke came a gigantic animal that Naruto recalled having seen only in books before. What was it called again? Rhinoceros something. It didn't matter, because it was barreling straight toward him at a completely unreasonable speed for something that big. Naruto bent his knees before engaging every muscle fiber in his lower body to flip his body over the rhino in time. He smirked in satisfaction as he found his opponent on the other side, standing still. "Shikamaru!" Naruto yelled. From the bushes behind them, a shadow slithered rapidly until it met the man's feet. "Got you." Shikamaru stood underneath his breath. "So you are from the leaf," the man sneered. "Doesn't matter, you're all dead now anyway," he said as the rhino charged towards Shikamaru's hiding spot. Before Shikamaru even had a chance to be scared, Ino darted out and launched a set of shuriken at the beast, just narrowly missing one of its eyes. The rhino roared in anger and changed paths towards its new blonde target. Ino had already moved on, deciding to take it on a wild goose chase. "She's faster than I remember," Naruto mumbled to himself. "You know, you're welcome to use that Rasen whatever anytime now, Naruto," Ino yelled as she hopped off a tree that was promptly leveled. Naruto formed his Rasengan, excited to use it for the first time in an actual combat situation. He watched Ino's movements and after deducing where she would lead the rhino, charged forward from the side, ready to dodge and weave around a torn and smack it in the face. However, just as he was only a few strides away from it, he felt his hand burn and looked to see his Rasengan begin to spiral out of control. Before he could figure out how to correct it, he felt himself being launched to the right with far more power than he had put in his leg. Tripping over his own feet, Naruto heard the Kyuubi's voice echo through his skull again. "What's wrong, brat? Thought you needed all this extra power from me." It was at this point Naruto began to rapidly panic. He felt the demonic chakra burning his skin and through his blurry vision watched Ino step into a branch that instantly collapsed, leaving her sprawled on the forest dirt. His ears were ringing, but he could vaguely make out Ino's yelling his name again, this time sounding more like a scream of horror than one trying to grab his attention. Naruto's mind betrayed him and he found himself deep in another memory. Laying in a dome of ice mirrors, his body screamed at him to move. Why was he seeing this? Masked shinobi teleporting through the mirrors launched a seemingly unending stream of senbon at him from every direction. This wasn't the forest. This was a different time. Still, how was he going to get out of this one? How did this memory end again? Another shriek of his name. This time it was Shikamaru who yelled it and brought him back to his senses. His entire body burned as he desperately launched himself towards Ino. He was actually aware that he had 3 tails of the demon transformation already manifested, but he didn't have time to worry about that. Ino was about to die. Soon he was able to completely push down the feeling of his burning skin and just barely launch himself in front of the rhino in time. Grabbing it by the horn, Naruto was able to narrowly lead it out of Ino's path as he was taken on a ride. Wait, how was he supposed to get off this thing? Was it just gonna keep going? A horrible crack echoed through the forest as Naruto felt his back hit a tree and a deep stab in his stomach. I missed 3 seconds ago when I didn't know the answer to that question, Naruto thought to himself as blood began to gush out of his open wound. "You absolute buffoon," came the Kyuubi's voice once more. "What's wrong, demon? Realize you can't keep breaking the seal if I fall unconscious?" Naruto managed to just barely say as blood ran down his mouth. "Give me a little more." "We still need to kill this thing," Naruto added as he realized his arm allowed a large Rasengan to form, using his remaining strength to drive it into the brain of the beast. Naruto felt his body go limp as he entered a state of half consciousness, half sleep. "See? Was that so hard?" Naruto asked the fox spirit. "Stop talking to me," the Kyuubi said harshly as he worked on healing Naruto's wounds. "Don't be such a drag. Most people get closer after a life or death situation." "Close with a demon?" the Kyuubi replied. Naruto was surprised. He had the expected sarcasm, but felt an underlying curiosity in the fox's tone. "Why not?" he asked back. But no reply was given, and Naruto decided to simply let the feeling of his healing body wash over him. He heard his name once again. It seemed to be coming from far away, and he felt his consciousness return to him. "Ino?" Naruto said, as he opened his eyes to see her sitting in front of him. Tilting his head to the right, he found Shikamaru, leaning in front of him as well. A lump formed in his throat and an awkwardness filled himself as he noticed tears had welled up in his friend's eyes. "Naruto, what? We thought you died," Ino said in a shaky voice. "You wiped out, and then you started to glow red. You even had tails. Is there something you're not telling us?" Shikamaru added. Naruto swallowed nervously as he heard those words. "Come on, guys. Are you gonna interrogate the guy who just got impaled?" "Your wound is almost completely gone now," Ino said in wide-eyed amazement. Crap, this wasn't something he could play off. He knew this would happen. Sooner or later, people would find out. "I promise, I'll tell you. If you pay for our ramen after this mission," Naruto said, and laughed in spite of himself, but he was relieved when he heard his teammates laugh back. "You really are something, Naruto," Shikamaru said, as he and Ino helped Naruto onto his feet and helped him walk over back to the clearing. "What happened to the guy we were fighting?" Naruto asked. "Let's just say we have a souvenir from this mission," Ino replied as they made it back, and Naruto found him on the floor, tied up with a piece of cloth over his mouth. "TNI is gonna have fun with him." Shikamaru sighed as he handed the report to Jiraiya, and his team left the Hokage's office. Usually after these several-day missions, he would go home and pass out for 24 hours straight, but the confusion around Naruto kept his mind wide awake. As far as he could tell, there was only one explanation for Naruto's behavior. He was the boy the 4th Hokage sealed the fox demon in. The strange red chakra, his change in appearance. Shikamaru had even heard the boy point blank mutter "Kyuubi" in his sleep several times, not to mention the literal seal Ino had seen painted on the boy's stomach. Yes, figuring it out had frankly been the easy part. The hard part was how would he confront Naruto about it. He had prodded when Naruto had awoken up but was deflected quickly. Naruto did tell them he would tell the truth at Ichiraku afterwards, and whether he meant that or not, Shikamaru didn't plan on wasting such an opportunity. "Naruto," Shikamaru cut immediately after Ino had closed her door behind her. Toichi had made it a point not to serve them after missions until they had showered. Naruto turned in confusion as he felt Shikamaru's hand grabbed his arm. "I really don't know how I'm supposed to bring this up, but I at least figured you would prefer it if no one else would be here to listen to this," Shikamaru continued. Naruto tilted his head in confusion. "Shika, what are you—" But Shikamaru cut off, lowered his voice, and pulled Naruto in so nobody would hear. "I know you have the nine-tailed sealed inside of you." Naruto's expression was simply one of shock. So was Shikamaru when Naruto turned to face him and grabbed his shoulders. "Please, don't tell anyone, Shika." "Naruto, Shikamaru began to reply but was cut off again by Naruto's shaky voice. "Please, you don't understand. The villagers always treated me like crap, calling me demon, spitting in my face, refusing to sell things to me. Even at the orphanage, the caretaker hated me. Iruka came around eventually and the old man didn't mind, but if everyone else started to find out, they might..." "Naruto." It was Shikamaru's turn to interrupt. "Don't worry, I just wanted to know for sure. I don't think you're a monster, and I wouldn't tell anyone unless you were comfortable with it." Naruto's expression slowly calmed down and he let go of Shikamaru's shoulders. "I guess it makes sense when you put it together with that brain of yours," he said in nervous laughter. "For the record, Ino and Choji wouldn't judge you either. I know we weren't friends as kids, and you were sort of an outcast back then, but that doesn't mean we won't accept you." Naruto smiled in response. "Thanks, Shika, but I still don't know if I can tell them yet." The lazy voice of a masked shinobi cut in. "Might be wise to tell them soon, Naruto." Naruto and Shikamaru both jumped back in fear. "How the crap did you do you do that every time?" Naruto asked. Kakashi smiled and spoke again. "Well, I heard you guys discussing an S-rank secret. It's my duty to make sure it wasn't too audible." Shikamaru narrowed his eyes. "Hold on, what do you mean by that, Kakashi?" "Well, since we're discussing S-rank secrets, I thought I'd let you guys know that you might be in on something big soon. And Naruto, you might be assigned a mission where your comrades need to know about something like that." "Aw, come on, Kakashi, what's that supposed to mean?" Naruto pouted. "Sorry, Naruto, that's all Jiraiya is letting me tell anyone for now. I hear you guys are gonna have ramen. Sasuke and Sakura just got back from their own B rank. I think you should tell them there, Naruto." Shikamaru smiled. "Yeah, Naruto, you've been on some pretty wild missions on your team, as well as ours now. We won't judge you for something you had no control over." "That really means a lot, Shika," Naruto said with a smile. Naruto almost didn't make it out the door. For a while he just stood there and watched his reflection in the mirror. His body had changed quite a bit in the past 6 months. He'd grown several inches, no longer shorter than Sakura. Jiraiya had taken what little time he had off and taught him the Rasengan. He was learning wind release from Asuma. Other than that, Kakashi and Asuma had mostly focused on building up his strength and brushing up on the basics he had missed in the academy. As a result, he filled in his clothes much better than before, even opting to wear the flak jacket on missions. His headband was affixed to his thigh as Ino and Sakura had both insisted he looked better with his hair down. Naruto put on an offensive blue shirt and walked over to his door, his hand shaking as it went for the knob. "I have to do this," he thought to himself. "One day, when I become Hokage, everyone will have to know what I am. I can't hide from this forever," and walked out of his rundown apartment. Opting to release some of his nervous energy, Naruto hopped from rooftop to rooftop rather than traveling along the street. He had finally made it to his street and slid down the edge of a building and into an alleyway, appearing from seemingly nowhere. "Oi, Naruto," came the voice of Sasuke, who was waving at him from across the street. "We've been waiting for you," he continued, as Naruto made his way across. "I thought we'd be waiting on Naruto when it came to ramen," Sakura remarked, as the group filled the seats of the little stand. Sasuke, Sakura, Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji all ordered their ramen. Deciding to catch up on each other's recent missions, Naruto was sitting between Sasuke and Ino. He felt himself coming at ease as he laughed among his friends. Ino was seriously moving from that rhino Sasuke. You should have seen it. Ino was seriously moving from that rhino Sasuke. You should have seen it. She might be giving you a run for your money, Naruto teased, digging his elbow into Sasuke's side. "Naruto, you do remember Ino is the one we swapped you for, right? We've been seeing her speed up for months," Sasuke replied. Naruto scratched the back of his head and he laughed along with everyone else in embarrassment. "What did you do with the rhino then?" Sakura asked. "She fell in front of it," Shikamaru replied. "How are you even alive?" Choji asked. "Well, you know, Naruto jumped in front of it instead," Ino continued. "She had to scream his name twice though." "Did you really need that much convincing to have a pretty girl like me, to save a pretty girl like me?" Ino asked playfully. "I was sorta unconscious, to be honest," Naruto replied bashfully. "Is that why you woke up so scary looking?" she replied. Sasuke cut in. "What do you mean by that, Ino?" he asked with narrowed eyes. Crap, Naruto thought to himself. Ino had played dumb, but he had meant to bring the conversation here the whole time. He couldn't blame her. It was strange and he could be curious too, but he couldn't help the cold sweat that was building up. His eyes glazed over to Shikamaru, who was at the far end of the table, his face expressionless, but eyes glued at Naruto as the situation unfolded. "Well, maybe I was delirious from dying, but..." Naruto's chakra was kinda scary. It was also all red and coming out of his body like crazy. She paused, tapping her chin as she tried to recall any more detail. Oh, and his whiskers were more whisker-like? Say, Naruto, why do you have whiskers anyway? Choji asked. Aw, come on, Choji, they're not real whiskers, Sakura replied. Real whiskers aren't just lines on your face. But they're so perfectly aligned, he exclaimed. Naruto, Sasuke began, speaking directly to him and making it difficult for the others to catch his exact words. The same thing happened when we were fighting Haku and Zabuza, after I saved you from his senbon and passed out. I thought it was just a dream. I watched that red chakra come out of you, and you beat Haku. Naruto closed his eyes and took a deep breath, letting it go slowly. His heart rate quickened once again, and he kept his eyes locked on a random spot on the wall as he began. Since their inception, hidden villages have steel-tailed beasts inside of one of their own. 14 years ago, when the Kibi was released and attacked the village, the 4th Hokage sealed it into an orphan. Naruto turned his head to his friends. I'm sure you can all fill in the blanks, he finished quietly. That was a real lousy reason for half this village to treat you like crap, Ino said, and Naruto looked at her in surprise. I asked my parents once when I was little, and they wouldn't say anything to me. So Gaara of the Sand was like that too? Asked Sakura. Oh, him? Compared to him, I was treated like royalty, he replied solemnly. So, your demon is stronger than his. Is that how you beat him? Sasuke asked. Well, I didn't really beat him. In the end, we were both exhausted. He couldn't understand how I was able to stand up to him. I told him it was forming bonds and wanting to protect you guys. I don't know if he bought it, but he calmed down after that. I get it now, Sasuke muttered. That's why Itachi was here that day. Nobody said anything for a bit and the silence was awkward, but Ino decided to break it. I'm sorry, Naruto. I was pushing you hard and didn't think it might be something uncomfortable as that. Oh, it's alright, Ino. I can't blame you for wanting to know what was up, and I would have had to tell you guys sooner or later, Naruto replied, looking back down at his food again. He lost the current of the conversation as he felt something now deep down inside of him. The anxiety from his potential rejection washed away, and he realized he had been accepted. Chapter 7 Promotions Part 2 Sasuke Uchiha leaped from branch to branch as he led Team 7 back to the gates of Konoha. Not far behind him was Naruto and Sakura. A bit more removed from them was Kakashi. Ever since Kakashi had delegated the task of team leader to a rotating one among his students, he'd taken a step back from their missions, only intervening in excessively dangerous or particularly bizarre situations. Now after 6 months of operating like this, it was finally time to receive his promotion. Not that he particularly cared about the title itself. He had realized back during the original round of promotions that the title of chunin meant little to his actual skills as a shinobi. What it did do was give him higher access to more difficult missions, and that was valuable to him. They finally arrived at the gates of Konoha, and when Kotetsu and Izumo were done making sure they weren't imposters, they were back within the walls of Konoha. It was then that Kakashi turned to all of them. I'm gonna go on ahead, you two. If you have some sort of urgent matters, I suggest you tend to them now. It's gonna be a longer affair than last time around. Arrive within the next 45 minutes. Also, Naruto, you're to be present as well, and do not let one of your shadow clones attend in your place. In fact, I suggest you dispel any active ones, and make sure you enter through the alternate entrance separate from Sasuke and Sakura. Naruto puffed his chest out and stood up straight, bringing his arms into a salute. Yes, sir, he replied, comically as Kakashi left them to their devices. That was weird. It was nothing like that when Naruto got promoted, Sakura said. I've never been like this about any type of meeting we've had with the Hokage. What about you, Naruto? You don't seem concerned, Sasuke said. Last week after our mission, Kakashi told Shikamaru and I to expect something soon. Sounded pretty serious from his tone, but I don't know anything about it really. Anyways, it sounds like they want to keep it under wraps, so I guess I'll see you guys then. and he left his two teammates alone by the gate entrance. Sakura frowned. What's this all about? Not entirely sure, but it probably has something to do with why they've been keeping us all together, he said. I suppose as genin we shouldn't be allowed on missions with other teams, but they've been mixing us all up. Even training with Team 10 isn't normal. It breaks Konoha's 4-man cell training structure, she replied. They're gonna assign us something big. I can feel it. Shikamaru was not one for the theatrics, but when Asuma told him to take the alternative entrance to the Hokage Tower, he guessed it wasn't for no reason. With great care, he slithered through the streets of Konoha, slipping from shadow to shadow. He finally materialized in front of Naruto and Shino. Oi, Shika, you scared the crap out of me, Naruto said in an aggressive whisper. Neither of you were seen, right? Shikamaru asked him. Naruto performed the transformation into a little boy. Only I was seen wandering into the woods. That happened to be by the Hokage Tower, he replied in a squeaky voice before he undid the technique. Perfect, Shikamaru replied. What about you, Shino? I don't think anyone would notice either way, he said. Shikamaru and Naruto looked at him and then at each other awkwardly. Sorry about that, but yeah, I made my presence as scarce as possible when coming here. The Anbu guard told me he'd let us in eventually, Naruto told them. Speak of the devil, Shikamaru replied as the door opened and a aforementioned guard let him in. They walked through a dimly lit tunnel until they finally arrived at Jiraiya's office, where they were met with the sight of all of their comrades, and also their parents. What's this? Shikamaru asked as he locked eyes with his father. Ah, you're here, Jiraiya said to the group. Perfect. Now let's begin. First, for the trivial stuff, any genin rank shinobi in this room are now officially promoted to the rank of chunin. Forgive me for not making it as ceremonious as your more advanced teammates. Your flak jackets are over this way. The newly promoted chunin went and retrieved their flak jackets. You might not want to get too attached to those, Jiraiya commented. So, what's the deal, pervy sage? You got all of us here all secretively. What's happening? Naruto asked. A few people cringed, not yet used to Naruto's casualness with the Hokage, but everyone looked at Jiraiya anyways, waiting for an answer. Jiraiya scanned everyone in the room as if suddenly expecting to discover an imposter. He motioned for the Anbu guard to stand outside, and while Shikamaru wasn't an advanced sensor like Ino was, he realized that this was likely the only Anbu in the entire building. I know you have a lot of questions, but what's happening? And I'm gonna answer all of them about what's happening. From this point forward, you're gonna be privy to S-rank secrets, and anything that is said in this room is treated with such severity. Should any of you leak what goes down within these walls, you will be considered rogue nin and punished with execution for the crime of treason. The air in the room ran cold. Several young shinobi looked around at their comrades, processing the weight of the words the Hokage had just spoken to them. The older shinobi simply continued to look at Jiraiya, waiting for him to finish. The outcome of this meeting may result in you being assigned to an S-rank mission, which is why your parents are here, as it's uncommon to assign these to chunin, and especially since you're not yet 16. Sakura Haruno. Sakura perked up at the mention of her name. You may notice your parents here since they're civilians. You must discuss with and decide right now whether or not you will be taking this mission. I don't even know what it is yet, Sakura managed to stutter. I'm sorry, but that's not how it has to be. You may discuss outside, the Hokage told her, so Sakura and her parents retreated from the room. Lee, Guy said to the student, this mission has to do with Blue Black Ops. I advise you to not take it because of your disability. Lee had an indecipherable look on his face. Guy was worried. Lee might hastily try and take the mission because of his recently recovered physical state, but Lee eventually spoke up. It's okay, I understand, Guy-sensei. Anbu Black Ops may require a level of finesse in their espionage that I may not be capable of with my damaged chakra pathways. I will do my best as a regular shinobi of the leaf. Splendid decision, Lee, responded Guy in his usual animatedness. In that case, I also do not wish to be a part of this mission, Tenten chimed in. By the time everyone had made their decision, only Naruto, Sasuke, Ino, Shikamaru, Neji, and Kiba had decided to remain on board. Sakura walked back into Jiraiya's office. "I've decided to take on this mission, Lord Hokage," she said to Jiraiya. "Very well. For everyone who has decided against it, as well as your parents, follow the instructions of the Anbu at the door on how to leave. I've released decoys for everyone in this room to leave at different times so as to prevent suspicion." When they had left the room, Sasuke spoke up. "Lord Hokage, why would you need to avoid suspicion from your own administration?" "He's right," Shikamaru agreed. "High-rank secrets are traded here often, without this level of secrecy. As far as I can tell, there's only one Anbu guard." "In this whole building, there's 3, Ino said, much to the pride of her father. "Yeah, whatever. The average number of Anbu in this tower tends to be 12. The only reason to organize us here like this is if you think the Anbu is compromised and you're keeping it from other political figures in the village," Shikamaru finished. "You're correct. As of recently, I've had to question my trust for my own Anbu, and it's all because of this man," and he had laid in front of them a photo of a man with an X-shaped scar on his chin. "Who is this?" Neji asked. "This man is Danzo Shimaru. Within the public eye, he's simply a shinobi with higher political power than most, but that's the most a civilian could hope to grasp should they study him. If you've been around as long as we have, you know that the 3rd Hokage delegated a lot of Konoha dirty work to him." Jiraiya paused for a moment to let everyone take that in. "The dirty work is the subject of this mission. Danzo Shimaru had his own personal Anbu division, known as Root. Mentions of Root are incredibly scarce, almost blacklisted, even in the most confidential Anbu paperwork. For the past 4 months, I've read every single piece of paper we have on file, and shortly after Itachi Uchiha's assassination of his clan, there are no mentions of Roots." Sasuke growled in anger. "What do you say?" "Hold on, Sasuke. I know the implications, but put it aside for now. Early into my examination of the mission logs, I suspect that the Root was still active, and one night I discovered I was right. An Anbu came into my office and spilled as much as she could before she bled out. She was being followed by two other Roots." "Lord Hokage, if I may ask," said Neji, "what do you need us for? It seems as though you could have him arrested, even with just the information you have now. It's a very complicated situation. Not only do I have to worry about the Anbu that are loyal to him, but because of that I don't have many I can genuinely trust myself. Danzo has lots of connections, not just in Konoha. The daimyo have historically not liked them, but he's managed to form connections and raise his reputation. So, you're anticipating a coup d'etat, but I still don't understand why you want us specifically," Shikamaru said. "Danzo historically gathers followers by exploiting powerful young but potentially mentally unstable shinobi. Recently I've learned that Naruto has revealed his status as Jinchuriki to some of you," Jiraiya replied, smiling at Shikamaru's perceptiveness before he looked at his student's direction. "Yeah, it looks like it spread around Shoto quickly," Naruto replied. "Like I said, shinobi with upbringings as, well, unfortunate as Naruto and Sasuke's are basically gold to Danzo. Talented young chunin like the rest of you can also be, albeit more difficult because of your lack of isolation. So you want to use us as bait to take apart Roots?" asked in shock. Jiraiya paused before answering. "Better. I use you as bait than one of you actually falling into his hand. And you're all okay with this?" asked. She turned to Shinobi's parents in the room, all 5 of which were clan heads, most of whom she had known since childhood. Hayashi responded first, absolving Inoichi or Shikaku from having to seem heartless. "This is the best plan to take down Danzo. He continued to develop warhawk tendencies. If he is to take power, it's not just people within these walls or the Fire Country at risk." "I guess I understand. And if that's the only way, I'll do it, but that's more messed up than I was expecting," Ino replied defeatedly. "The cruel reality of our line of work," Jiraiya replied before he called his Amu back in. "Bring the other 2, he ordered. "These are Yamato and Yujeo. By the end of the week, they'll deliver to you a comprehensive overview of everything we've gathered up about Danzo and Roots. Remember, do not trust anything concerning your mission from any other Anbu than these two. Should another Anbu attempt to engage you regarding root infiltration, leave immediately and find the nearest superior that was present in this room today. That's all for now. You're dismissed. Leave in scattered fashion just as the others did. Shut up, Sasuke, Naruto said in irritation as they walked. He was trying to bury the venom that had built up inside of him. What's wrong, Naruto? I'm just telling Ino about how you finally learned a legendary jutsu, he teased back. Ino giggled in response. Is that really how you finally pulled it off? She asked. Naruto hated that, but he didn't want to admit it. No. This was not happening. This was just another Sakura situation. He was just feeling jealous because he felt the need to outdo Sasuke and everything, not because he had feelings for Ino, right? It was in fact how I pulled off the Rasengan, Naruto replied, doing his best to insert an air of pretentiousness, in his tone. It's no wonder it took a similarly legendary shinobi like Sakura to push me to it. Well, after she was finished obliterating Sasuke, Ino laughed out loud, having never heard this type of inflection from Naruto, and turned to Sasuke about this likely tall tale. Success. Naruto turned this back around. It was rare to have a story like that in his arsenal, and he had been able to reveal it in the perfect moment. Now he was able to go back to brooding about his new predicament. Dinner with his team, Team 10, and their parents. Naruto had argued at first that this would be suspicious given their new mission, but had been quickly dismissed. After all, they were just celebrating everyone's promotions, and given Team 10's and Team 7's developing closeness, it would not appear suspicious to the potential uninvited leaders of Root. He had nothing else to say to that, and had been left wishing he was as good at arguing as Shikamaru. Now he had to attend this dinner with the Ino Shikacho parents, absolutely horrifying. Inoichi, who looked like he could snap Naruto in half, probably physically and mentally. Shikaku, who had two admittedly sick-looking scars and spiky vest, and Chaozu, who was large both horizontally and vertically. He knew this was a stupid thing to be nervous about, but after years of mistreatment from adults, he was nervous every time he had to meet one. Ah, you're here. Shikaku Nara stood in front of them and proceeded to lead them inside. Naruto had never actually been in the compound. Team 10 had preferred to train in the outskirts of the Nara woods, where the deer never really ventured towards. Their training ground always had a peaceful air to them, overwhelming greenery and the distant sound of running water. Here, the effect was multiplied several times, and it worked to soothe Naruto's anxious spirit as they entered the house and met with Kakashi, Sakura, and the rest of Team 10. There you are. I was beginning to think you'd gotten into an epic battle among the rooftops of Konoha Hospital, Kakashi said as he greeted his students. What? Naruto tried to ask, but received swift dismissals from his sensei. He found himself sat next to Sasuke and Choji and remained relatively quiet while the others engaged in polite conversation. This meal is quite splendid, Miss Nara, Kakashi praised when the conversation began to dull. Oh, I haven't seen you take a single bite, she replied. I have no idea what you're talking about, he responded innocently, and to everyone's surprise his plate was indeed mostly empty. Hey, Sasuke, you weren't supposed to keep watch this time, Shikamaru scolded. I did, I swear to God I had my Sharingan activated this whole time. I haven't bothered eating myself, and he wasn't lying about that. Sasuke's food was nearly untouched. Every time he'd go to pick it up, it wouldn't just disappear before I even realized what was happening. You kids are so cute, came the cheerful voice of Ino's mother. It's so nice to see your teams have gotten so close lately. It'll probably save our skin out there too, Shikamaru replied grimly. We shouldn't discuss that here, son, Shikaku responded. Oh, but why not, was Ino's grating reply. Ah, crap. Those were the words that came to all of the young Chunin's minds when they heard that tone. Ino was about to make things awkward, and nobody was going to stop her. Inoichi tried to reason with his daughter, anticipating the direction this was headed. Well, honey, in the compound there are Nara members that aren't Shikamaru's part. Oh, so when then? When are we gonna talk about how we're going to throw a bunch of 14-year-olds to take down a confidential branch of Anbu? Shikaku and Chozu attempted to chime in, but Ino was already on a roll. I mean, like, you literally realize how insane this is, right? She snorted. First, we're gonna throw Sasuke Uchiha at the man who is likely responsible for driving his brother insane to the point of committing... what happened to the Jews? Not just him though, along him, we're gonna send the village's Jinchuriki, who it seems to me until recently had absolutely no friends and is still mistreated by much of the village today. Oh yeah, right, behind Naruto and Sasuke, we're gonna add 5 of the youngest chunin in the village. That's enough, her father replied coldly. S-rank secrets are S-rank for a reason. We have no idea how many spines that scoundrel has planted around here. But Ino remained on the offensive. Okay, no Danzo talk then. You still all seem to ignore that Naruto and Sasuke issue. Growing up, not a word has spoken to me about Naruto. You all knew how he was being treated, never did anything. Same with Sasuke. His entire clan was murdered and he just lives in their ghost town? Ino, you don't have to defend us. Naruto tried desperately, hoping to get the attention off of himself. If I don't, who will? She asked and turned back to the adults in the room. I know we're shinobi, and you always say no matter how right or just a shinobi thinks they are, they will meet their comrades and enemies in the same dark corner of hell. But is this really how low we are? You let Shikamaru, Choji, and I grow up like this while you knew just outside our compounds they were living like that? Ino had tears swelled up in her eyes. Ino, when it comes to those two, the Sandame didn't let us do much of anything. The most we were allowed to was get rid of anyone stupid enough to threaten Naruto's life, or in Sasuke's case, keeping him from the civilians' whispers. So that's the best we got then. Sit by and do nothing. None of the adults in the room had an easy time falling asleep that night. Like the video, don't forget 500 likes for the next part, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.